Red Barrels podcast. We're back. It's happening. We're back. And it's episode 17, the best episode. Everyone knows the 17th episode is the best episode. That's a well-known adage. And I think we're going to live up to that easily. We're going to surpass whatever you thought the best possible episode of our podcast could possibly be. This is going to be at least 20 times better than that. It's going to be incredible. Just podcast gold all the way through 100% of the time. All killer, no filler. And to prove that, we have two killer co-hosts who are the same co-hosts you've heard every single time. And they are...
Me. I'm one of them. I'm Sofie. I'm
going to be editing out I'm going to be cutting that, that big gap of time a little bit.
Make it longer, you coward.
Make it longer. Leave in the silence. It's me. It's Sofie. And also...
It's me. It's Ed, the other co-host. Thank you so much for listening once again.
Thanks for listening once again,
I think
guys.
I didn't say what my name is. I'm Alex. I think I frequently don't say what my name is. And you're right, no one does care.
I'm joking. You can't agree with me. That makes it mean.
No,
Sophie, that was so unnecessary.
Okay, like Gramsci said, we must live without illusions, without getting disillusioned. And in that, we must admit that, no, I'm not the draw for anyone listening to this podcast. That's just true. But I must move forward through that knowledge and not get disillusioned. That's right. We went Gramsci this early. Wow. No one can deny our credentials as a leftist podcast.
That is crazy.
But you know what? We
know a leftist.
We're going to also establish our credentials as a gaming podcast by immediately getting into the game. And we've got a good one coming up here with an obscure classic from Ed. I don't think you'll have heard of this game, and you certainly won't have heard any discourse or seen any very long YouTube videos about. They don't exist. This is pure novelty. You're going to be hearing out of Ed's mouth right now. What game are you talking about, Ed?
I'm talking about Dark Souls.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's quite an obscure one, so I'm actually really glad to finally give it its time in the sun here.
Never heard of it.
Well, it's a 2011 action RPG from FromSoft, and it's the sequel to their game Demon's Souls, which I talked about on episode 8 of this very podcast. So,
very nice.
If you want more general feeling about Soulsborne from yours truly, please check that episode out. So, Demon's Souls, it was very well received when it came out, but people it didn't really take off in the way that Dark Souls did.
Oh.
And I've spent the last 14 years seeing people I respect talk about Dark Souls, and I've been excited to find out what it was that set it so much above Demon's Souls in the public imagination. I'm very excited to finally jump in, and I played the 2018 remaster for the PlayStation 4, by the way. So yeah, that's the question. Why did this one hit the zeitgeist so much harder than Demon's Souls? I mean, initially, between the two games, there are some obvious differences, but I also don't want to sell short how similar these two games are. They have basically the same core appeal, the same basic feel when playing their game. They're both sort of very weighty games that you got to be very deliberate when playing. You can't just run in and attack wildly. If you try and button mash in this game or any game in this series, you'll die very quickly to even the most basic enemy that you would encounter. Both of these, Demon's Souls and Dark Souls, you need to really learn the patterns of your enemy and dodge and block appropriately and learn when it's safe to attack. You also need to be careful with when you heal, and you need to think that maybe you should be backing away in some situations. So the real core of this experience is the same as Demon's Souls, really, and also the same as Bloodborne, which I've also played, with some small tweaks. So that only makes the question even more mysterious to me. Why is it that Dark Souls really took off? My limitation in comparing the two is that I did play very different classes in these games. Demon's Souls, I went out of my way to play as easy a class as possible. I used a magic build. With this Dark Souls, I wanted to try a more physical build, baby. Let's get physical, I thought. So I went strength. As a very, very strong man in real life, I thought I wanted to see myself...
Famously.
You are the bad boy.
You're the bad boy.
Yeah, I wanted to see myself reflected on the screen. I am the bad boy. Look, I don't want to show off, but I have literally done an exercise before in my life. Sorry. sorry to brag.
All right, big shot over here.
Back ladies.
All right.
Wow.
So
please At the end of the show, we'll put out our PO box number so that our female fans can send their underwear just for that.
Please don't do that.
He is engaged, so
I am engaged.
No,
Sorry,
that's not a
ladies,
boyband. We can't.
I'm off the
We
market.
can't announce that.
Alex, we've talked about this. We're not signing
Women need to
K-pop
believe
style
he's attainable.
contracts, all right? Crikey. Anyway, so yeah, magic class in Demon Souls, strength-based in Dark Souls. I played a cleric. I wore light armor, and I used a mace that I stuck with the entire game, upgrading it as I went on. Early on in the game, I was a real mace in one hand, shield in the other kind of guy, but by the end, I was two-handing the mace and not bothering with the shield. So
Wow.
very much the opposite play styles, from quite like safe, chipping away from distance with magic, to plowing on in there, not even bothering with a shield and just hitting. So, there might be some nuances that I miss that in terms of like differences between the two games because I've had such different play styles. But as far as I can see, the core is basically the same. And that's good, because if you remember from episode 8, I thought Demon Souls was pretty great, actually. So I'm pretty happy to find that this game is more or less the same in that sense. It's still just very satisfying to learn how to sort of dance your way through the game, like learning what you got to do and where and when. And you just feel like you get so much better as the game goes on. And it's just quite addictive to me, to sort of that feeling of how much better you are than at the start. Okay, so there are a lot of similarities. Let's talk about the actual changes then. Demon Souls, you've got this central hub location, and from there you can teleport into the worlds, which are then maybe have 2 or 3 bonfires split into a couple of different sections. There's no interaction whatsoever between these different sort of worlds off the central hub, aside from the fact that you can teleport back to the central hub. On the other hand, in Dark Souls, there is no central hub. Each section of the game you approach from the previous section. So, for example, you start the game properly at Firelink Shrine, and from there you could walk to Undead Burg, or you might take an elevator down to New Londo Ruins, and there's like a feeling of a cohesive world, which also opens up the possibility of shortcuts between the different areas, which is very satisfying. And so I do think that was basically straightforwardly an improvement from Dark Souls to Demon Souls.
Mm-hmm.
The second key change is how health works. In Demon Souls, you recovered your health by eating herbs that certain enemies dropped. So this had some upsides to it, like instead of just plowing through a section you'd already finished and like running away from all the enemies and trying to get back to where you needed to get to, it created an incentive for you to kill the enemies a bit more because they might drop herbs that you need. The downside is there are a couple of points where it gets really, really hard and you might run out of healing stuff and you'll have to go back and grind to get enough healing items. And that just takes all the momentum out of the game for me and could be a bit boring and make what was already a stressful period even more stressful. Dark Souls, completely different system. They use the Estus flask. You start with a certain number of flasks and they're restored every time you rest at a bonfire. So gone is the need to ever grind for healing items. So again, while there are upsides to the Demon Souls system, I reckon Dark Souls is basically a straightforward upgrade there as well. So 2 basically straightforward upgrades from Dark Souls to Demon Souls. And then the more sort of nebulous comparison between the 2 games would be, how does it feel to be in the world? Like, how are the enemies? How are the bosses? Like, less gameplay stuff or more like, what is it like to actually exist in the setting? Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, guys, but I kind of did prefer the worlds in Dark Souls. I don't know if it's just because I'd heard of so many of these places before I went there. Like, because the game's reputation is so big, like, when I finally got to, for example, Blight Town, a game with sort of an infamous reputation. Like, I was instantly... Say again?
I'm sorry, there's a band called Blighttown in the UK. They're quite good.
Shout out to
probably
Blighttown.
named
Clearly
after the Dark Souls.
Yeah, clearly a reference, because the like I've got one of their t-shirts. It's like clearly a sort of Elden Ring style creature. Or Dark Souls
exactly.
is sort
and
of creature.
are there bands named after Demon Souls areas? I don't know.
Who
Not as far as I'm
fucking
aware.
knows?
Probably not.
So
I would
don't
say that
know.
one of the original reasons that Blighttown was like notorious was that when you originally played it on the Xbox 360 or whatever, the frame rate completely tanked in Blighttown, and it was like incredibly bad. This is now that you play it on PS4 and PS5, and it's like the remastered version, that's long fixed, but that was originally a big issue.
Yeah, that's fair. I would say Blighttown in actuality was not a very difficult section of the game. So
I thought it was difficult.
It was an
man.
interesting.
You're fucking boasting here. The bad boy of
Easy peasy.
the Red Battles
Sorry,
podcast.
guys.
I mean, hey, it's nothing to me. So a million guys just shooting poison darts out of you that you don't see from corners. Yeah, it's nothing, man.
You should have waited until 2018 to play it when the remaster came out. Come on, guys. My strategy of not playing games until they've been out for at least 45 years is finally paying off. But yeah, you get to Blighttown. I don't know if it's just because that you've already heard of it, but you're quite quickly, you feel nervous. I felt stressed. I felt excited to be there. So it creates a kind of bias towards Dark Souls, I guess. And the same is true of the bosses. The bosses in Demon Souls, I hadn't really heard of any of them before I played there. The bosses were, again, a real strength of that game. I thought they were a lot of fun. But there are a lot of the bosses in Dark Souls where I felt a bit more sort of wowed. But I do think that is partially because I had heard of quite a lot of them before I played it. I mean, especially, I'm not sure even how you pronounce this. Ornstein and Smaug? Smaug? Yeah, obviously one of the most famous bosses in the game. And when I got there, I knew shit was about to get real. You know what I mean? Like, I had a strong emotional response to being there of like, man, I need to buckle down and like get my head in the game for this in a way that I didn't really ever have with anything in Demon Souls. So hard to say whether the worlds and the bosses were actually better, but they sort of felt better for me partially because of those reasons. And then I guess another thing, again, this is mainly just turning into a list of reasons why I think Dark Souls was better than Demon Souls, but the boss runs I felt were a lot shorter overall in this game. And for me, that is straightforwardly a positive change. I don't mind a long-ish boss run if the boss is kind of not too hard. But if there's a really long boss run and then also quite a difficult boss, just feels like the boss run feels like it's wasting my time. You know what I mean? Like I find that really stressful and unpleasant. And there was that section in Demon Souls, the Shrine of Storms, where the boss run was basically the entire level. Like you have to do basically the entire level every single time. And that there's not a bit of Dark Souls like that is an improvement. I was stuck in that bit in Demon Souls for hours, and I was very glad there wasn't anything like that back here. And in general, it's quite kind, really, with where the bonfires are placed relative to the bosses. The boss runs are just okay. Like, there's nothing too, thinking about it, I mean, there's nothing really that springs to mind at all as being too bad of a boss run. There are some longer boss runs, but only with really easy bosses. So, I don't know, just felt like it was straightforwardly better. And I mean, yeah, I've been sort of floating around the difficulty there. I've just sort of chatted shit about Blighttown a bit. But I mean, I was surprised to find Dark Souls to be quite a bit easier than I thought it was. And I had an easier time in Dark Souls than I had in Demon Souls. So obviously I benefited from having played Demon Souls and all first, but I wasn't expecting it to make this big of a difference, especially because Demon Souls wasn't my first game in this series. I'd also played Bloodborne before I played Demon Souls, and also I'd gone out of my way to choose a very easy build in Demon Souls, which was quite a different playstyle. So I don't know, it seems to me that Demon Souls might just be a harder game than Dark Souls. That was my experience online. I've seen a lot of discussion online about ranking this series, and there are some things which come up a lot, but quite a lot of them appear at different places on different people's lists. So I do feel like it is partially what you find challenging in these games. Yeah, but I mean, let's not fuck around. Dark Souls is still a hard game. I don't want to pretend this was a cakewalk. And there are 3 moments specifically that I want to highlight that I found hard and that I think sort of reflects on how the game works. The first was the Bell Gargoyles. This was a boss that I encountered very early on in Dark Souls. I think a lot of people do. It was basically the third boss that I encountered, but the first one was like the beginner's training boss, and the second one was almost identical to that. So this was almost like my first proper boss, and it was the point at which I needed to get good in the Dark Souls lingo. I was stuck on this boss for longer than I was stuck on any other boss in the entire game. This third boss in the whole thing. It was really early on, and I was stuck there for ages, for hours and hours and hours. But by the time I'd beaten the Bell Gargoyles, I had got so much better at the game. My mace had gone from being the default mace to being a +5 mace. And I felt like by that stage, I was basically good enough, skill-wise, to be able to get through the entire rest of the game. I was stuck here so long, but it wasn't bullshit. The boss run was not too hard. Like, it does do a little prank on you where you're fighting this boss and you get it down to half health, and then a second one of the boss turns up as well. Like, the first time, that is a bit of a fuck you. But after that, you know what you're getting into, and it's just, am I good enough to beat this boss or not? And the satisfaction of finally beating that guy or those guys was incredible. But I do wonder if it was smart to put such a difficulty spike so early on in the game. I mean, I haven't looked at like the Steam analytics or whatever, but I could easily imagine people bouncing off here. I mean, maybe not now, because I imagine a lot of people, because of this reputation, are seeking this game out specifically because they know it's so hard. But I would be interested to see who people who went in blind in 2011, how many of those people continued past Bell Gargoyles. You know what I mean? Like it was really tough, I thought.
I think, I mean, I played it, and that's a tough boss, but I don't think that's like a famous difficulty spike for most people. I think it's just like a lot of these games, I mean, there are frequently like single notorious bosses that are very difficult, but there's also just a certain amount where like there's just going to be some random boss that you found incredibly difficult, and then some other person did on their first go, and it wasn't a big deal. And it's just like that's just inevitable. That's going to happen a lot.
Yeah, I mean, again, as with ranking how difficult the games are, I've looked at a lot of the discourse about how difficult the bosses are in Dark Souls, and I've seen people who rank Bell Gargoyles like top 2 or 3, and I've seen people who rate Bell Gargoyles like right near the bottom of the list. So yeah, it's not going to be consistent, and it changes a lot depending on your class. From what I've seen afterwards, if you've got any kind of range build or any kind of magic in any way, then this is a really easy boss. But if you don't, you're in trouble. That's kind of the vibe I got. But yeah, my overall feeling of that is, maybe it was kind of too much of a difficulty spike, but I did feel like it was kind of showing me what the game does really well. Like you do, the feeling of progression of overcoming that boss was really addictive. Again, it felt really good. So I don't, this is overall not a complaint. I thought that was very legitimate difficulty. A thing that I found harder that I didn't think was such legitimate difficulty is status effects that persist after you die. That is
I know
bullshit. So there's an area in the game called the Depths. I fought my way basically the whole way through the area to a bonfire, and then continued beyond the bonfire to get towards a boss. When I got a status effect called being cursed, I was cursed. This meant that when I respawned up the bonfire, my maxed health was permanently half my original max health until I found a way to cure my curse, which meant that the entire progress I'd made in the game for the last couple of hours or whatever of battling my way to this point, I had to go and undo immediately by leaving the depths and going to the exact opposite side of the world, where actually quite near where the Bell Gargoyles were, to go and cure my curse. And as it turned out, that didn't take too long. It wasn't too hard. I still kind of had the patterns memorized for most of the stuff between here and there, and it was okay. But that feeling of knowing that I had to go and undo everything that I'd just done, again, like if I hadn't been quite committed to beating this game, I could imagine people basically rage quitting at that point, because that is a fuck you. And unlike other bits of challenge in the game, I don't think that's fun. That particular kind of challenge, like I'm not sure anyone's there like, oh hell yeah, I love to go and redo content so I can cure my status effect. Everything else in the game, more or less, there are a couple of other ones, but most status effects in the game, you die and then you're all good, and then you can go again, and that's kind of part of the appeal. You go again and again and again and get better and better and better, and slowly, you almost like water eroding rock, you slowly get through the game, and it feels great. These bits where you got to turn around and go do something else, nah, I'm not. I did not like that.
It's worth pointing out as well that like how you fix that is not even a little bit clear in the game. I imagine you looked it up in a wiki or something.
I googled it.
100%. and of course when that game came out, this is like before a million wikis and so on. This stuff is now like super well known and established, whereas when that game came out, it was like full of weird mysteries, and this is one of them. How the fuck do you do this? Oh, you have to basically go to some random NPC who you probably have already forgotten about on the other side of the map to go to and pay him something. Something like that. It's bullshit, really. But it's also kind of like, oh, these days everyone's like, haha, it's so bullshit. I love it. Yeah, I love bullshit in this game. And like, I don't know, in some way you can get away. You get away with it just because of the game's fame and notoriety. But I always think, if you was just like some guy who picked it up because you like the box art in 2014 or like 2010 or whenever it came out.
2011,
it's just like, what the fuck? Half of my health is gone, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to do about it.
Yeah, agreed. And then there's also a status effect which degrades your armor and makes your equipment and makes that kind of unusable. And you can very easily get a way of circumventing that. But the first time that happens to you, as it turned out, I was in a position where I could fix that quite quickly. But that's just luck. Like I could have had that in a way worse place, like I had with the curse. So yeah, that's my second moment of difficulty, and that was one that I think was bad. I don't enjoy that, and I can't really imagine people enjoying it that much. I don't. I'm not sure they should keep that in future games. I mean, and I don't know if they have or they haven't, but there have obviously been a lot more games.
I'll spoil it for you. That enemy comes back. It's even in Elden Ring, the kind of chameleon-looking thing, the weird lizard that makes you the curse. But none of them, they give you a curse, but the curse is different, and it doesn't. They don't do that again. But there are like permanent in Dark Souls 2. There are like things that permanently reduce your health until you do something quite similar.
I see. Well, and let me move on then to my final moment of difficulty that I want to highlight, and that is, already mentioned them, but the legendary Ornsteinen Smog, whatever, I don't know. They were the only boss, aside from Bell Gargoyles, that I was like properly stuck on for like multiple hours, you know what I mean? But, as I say, I knew that going in. I got to them, and I knew that this was going to be maybe the hardest point of the game. Like, I knew that they've got that reputation, and it was pretty fun. I don't know, it took me about 4 hours at this boss, but you know, the first time I went in, like, I got flattened like almost immediately, and the feeling of sort of steadily getting better and like getting the tactics down, it was really satisfying. I mean, I don't want to say there's no bullshit in that fight, because I think there is. I think a lot of people have said this from what I've seen as well. The fact that they can hit you through each other is bullshit. That is bullshit. But other than that element, it was a very satisfying boss fight. And the feeling that I felt when I beat them, I don't know, it felt like I'd beaten the whole game. Like, I felt great. I actually did feel better then than I did when I'd beaten the whole game. It was so, I don't know, just really exciting. Like, I felt powerful. I felt great. I felt like I'd done a really good job. I don't know. I was proud of myself. I could have teared up, you know. I felt fantastic. And that's the appeal of these games, partially. Like, there's no other game series where I feel that kind of achievement when I beat something. So even though I found the second half of the game personally to be quite a lot easier than the first half of the game, second half is easier than the first half. Even though there were quite a few bosses in the second half that I thought were basically not too difficult, and I beat, or maybe like 2 or 3 tries, I still felt that kind of like euphoric excitement of besting them, even when I did it quite easily, just because of how they'd set it up earlier, that these guys were going to be so tough. It still felt like an achievement. I mean, for example, there was a boss called Pinwheel later on in the game that it took me 2 goes, but the relief I felt after 2 was quite a lot. Because who knows when I go in? Like, I could be there for hours for all I know. But yeah, I mean, that said, I mentioned Bell Gargoyles earlier. I said maybe that difficulty spike should be a bit later, and the relative ease of the second part of the game does make me think that even more. Like, I do think that some of the guys later on are too easy to be that late in the game, and some of the guys earlier on are a bit too hard. But that partially is up to how you play it. Like, it doesn't, the game right at the start, it tells you to go and ring a couple of bells, and then you got to work out from there where you're going to go. So you can approach the game and face these bosses in quite a few different orders, and then that's true in the second half of the game as well. There's a point you've got to go and do. You got to go do 4 things, and you can sort of do them in whichever order you work out. So I just happened to experience it in that kind of way, where the second half was a lot easier than the first half. I don't know, but yeah, even despite that, I remained like tense and focused and engaged and hooked throughout the game. It still felt like brutally tough, even though I was like beating it quite like on my first or second go. Do you know what I mean? Like, it still felt like, oh, it's gonna fucking get you, but then it sort of kind of didn't. But it was, I don't know, I found that to be satisfying. Yeah, and at the end of the game, I was level 75. I had a plus 14 mace and plus 3 Estus. I took an hour and a quarter on that final boss, which was the hardest one in the second half for me, but it still felt quite doable. So I don't know if maybe I was over leveled for that point in the game. There was a point where I did a little bit of level grinding, just because I found this room where basically it would take me like 2 minutes to go up a level, and it was crazy. It was like, wow, it's giving away XP like nothing. So I just spent like half an hour, 45 minutes doing some grinding, went up like 10 levels. So that obviously could be part of it. But yeah, I guess my only other criticism that I'd like to bring out here, because I mean, basically this is a relatively glowing review, and you all knew that going in, you little bastards. Like, everyone likes Dark Souls.
Spoiler
obviously.
alert.
spoiler alert, and turns out Dark Souls is good.
Simply
what
hasn't
a
got the
shame.
balls to be a contrarian about Dark Souls. Just imagine being the guy on the internet who says that Dark Souls is bad.
It's a very
I
rabid
know,
fan
I know.
base, to be fair. So.
My only other criticism is, again, I have seen other people say this too, it did feel a bit more directionless in the second half of the game. First half of the game, it felt like I knew what I was kind of trying to do, and I knew basically which kind of direction to go in, because they sort of, up is one bell, down is the other bell, okay, go. And then the second part of the game is, you got to go kill these 4 guys. But I got no clue where these 4 guys are. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. What do you mean? There's an entire world here. Where are these 4 guys? So, yeah, bye. So yeah, I mean, I've got no shame in admitting I looked up where those 4 guys are. I'm sorry. I had no
You're an adult.
no
you don't have the
information.
time.
I can do what I want. Yeah, I've got work in the morning. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's my only criticism. After you make it through, the game does kind of peak with Ornstein and Smough and Anor Londo and all that kind of stuff. But it's a high peak, and then the rest of the game kept me engaged, kept me tense. And I think the real sign, I think part of the difference in mindset for me at the end of Demon Souls versus Dark Souls is like, that really speaks to the difference in the game. At the end of Demon Souls, I was like, man, I feel so good, so proud of overcoming that game. And one day I will play Dark Souls. Finishing Dark Souls, I was like, man, that was great. I can't wait to play Dark Souls 2. That was the difference for me.
I see.
So yeah, I'm the 1 millionth person who's told you specifically to play Dark Souls. But if you don't mind things being really hard, I would highly recommend you play Dark Souls. And I've sort of dotted in some of the Dark Souls discourse over the last couple of weeks, a couple of episodes as well, haven't I? Like in the Silk Song one, I positively compared Dark Souls to Silk Song in some of the bosses stuff.
What is more difficult? Is it Silk Song or is it Dark Souls?
For me, Silk Song's harder.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. Yeah.
I haven't finished Silk Song yet. I'm still playing it. I'm actually enjoying it quite a bit more than when we made that episode. But from where I'm at in that game, Dark Souls seems like quite a bit easier. And it's also just, it feels a bit fairer to me. Like some of the stuff from Silk Song feels more like it enjoys doing bullshit to you. Whereas Dark Souls does bullshit to you like once, and then then you'll be all right. It doesn't do, like for example, the Bell Gargoyles halfway through, another one appears. Whereas in Silk Song, it's more like they'll kill you even at the end of a boss fight, and then you got to redo the whole boss fight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. So
yeah.
In fact, you told me what I'm talking about.
We talked about it on the podcast. Our
we talked about it on the podcast.
Must know what they're talking about because they listened intently to every episode we do and take notes.
Exactly. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say on Dark Souls. If you don't mind a hard game, check it out. If you've got better things to do than play a hard game, I'm not going to judge you, my friend.
What is your opinion on the politics of Dark Souls? You have a political take on Dark Souls.
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that because I really don't have any political takes on Dark Souls. I was racking my brains for some interesting thing I could say about Dark Souls politically, and I really have very little. I mean, the first thing that sprung to mind was there are not a lot of women in this game, and the woman that stands out the most is there because she has very large breasts.
Very large.
That's her role in the story.
She's a large lady, and she's large.
A large lady
in other ways
with yes. That's what she's there for. So that's unfortunate that's the sort of main woman that stands out in Dark Souls. But other than that, I really haven't got much politically to say. I mean, we talked a little bit about like get good culture in the Demon Souls episode. And the same stuff obviously exists here. Have you got some sort of, and obviously narratively, it's deliberately sort of obscure a little bit, like what's going on and what any of it means. So it's hard to have like.
I am very glad you have brought this game up because this gives me the opportunity to unveil my grand political theory of Dark Souls. I believe the entire game is an allegory. I know more and better about the lore of this game than Vati Vidya, Smough, all these YouTubers. They don't understand the lore of Dark Souls. I do.
Oh my God.
Because I'm the only one who has decoded what it's actually about. And I'm only being like 50% joking there.
You're like that Twin Peaks guy with the 4-hour Twin Peaks explained video.
I am a bit like that, yeah. This isn't going to take 4 hours, though, don't worry. Genuinely, I think that this game is a political allegory. Okay, so what happens in this game? And to be clear, we're going hard spoilers. This is all spoilers. I'm going to spoil everything about the game. I will put in a time code in the podcast description that will tell you when you can skip this if you are one of the few people who haven't also played Dark Souls. So, at the beginning of this game, you start off, you're like a prisoner in this asylum, and you manage to get out, and you're basically the lowest of the low, right? You're the bottom of the ladder. You're level 1 or whatever. Eventually, you make your way through to the Firelink Shrine, and there you meet the crestfallen knight, and he just says, "Oh yeah, well, why don't you just ring these 2 bells?" He just gives you no real reason that you should do that. Just do it. And so you go do it. Eventually, you do that, and you come back to the Firelink Shrine, and now there is this weird toothy serpent guy. And he just lays it on incredibly thick, right? He tells you that you are the chosen one, that you're going to, what you've got to do is you've got to relink the fire. You've got to bring about or revitalize the age of fire, because what we need to do is stave off the age of dark. We can't have that. It's awful. We've got to do this for the gods. The gods, Lord Gwyn and all the rest of the gods, they're all part of the age of fire, and you've got to do it. And you can be a god too if you do this. Now, he really lays it on thick. He tells you to go to Anor Londo. You do that. You beat Ornstein and Smough. And then you get to meet the princess, who is the well-endowed lady we were mentioning earlier. And this plays the most cloying music you've ever heard, while she tells you again how you are the chosen one and how incredible you are. And all you've got to do is take this soul vessel and bring it back to the toothy serpent. You do that, and the serpent says, "Okay, what we need to do is that you just need to kill these 4 guys and get their souls and bring them back here, and then we can relink the fire. It's going to be incredible." All at this time, they're really building up how incredible you are. However, at this point, a bit of doubt might start to seep in, because these 4 guys you're killing, when you go into the lore, it's pretty obvious, in fact, they're all like allies of Lord Gwyn. They're all like kind of associated with these gods you're supposed to be helping out. And they've all turned incredibly evil, which is why you have to kill them. You also might find out that big boobed lady, she's an illusion. She's not really there. If you attack her, she disappears, and it turns out a weird guy in the basement has been casting a spell. So even that's fake, right?
So
Eventually,
we can reduce the women count from 1 to 0.
I think there are a couple of other.
There are certainly NPCs who are female coded, but
yeah, it's not. You know, I'm not defending the
Not a
gender balance
bastion
in
of
this game.
representation.
Anyway, so you finally you kill these guys, you come back, you get access to the last kiln or whatever it is, and you finally meet Lord Gwyn. He's crazy. You have to kill this dude, the guy, the great god. You kill him, and finally you can relink the fire. And what that is that your character just gets burned alive. The end. That's what happens. That's the end of the game. And the response to most people watching that is like, what? What's going on? Maybe you start New Game Plus, and you kind of, with your new more powerful experienced self, you kind of explore a bit more and get into areas you probably didn't realize you could get into at the time when you thought you could. When you do that, you might find another guy, right? Another toothy serpent, a different one. This guy tells you something different to the last one. He tells you that actually the Age of Fire is bullshit. It's just complete bollocks that the gods, who are just the powerful people, keep to maintain their power. And in fact, you want to embrace the Age of Fire, the Age of Dark, because the titular dark soul of the game is humanity. And you're a human, so you should want the Age of Humanity, right? And that's what he tells you to do. And he gives you a different quest where you basically have to do exactly the same thing. But this time, instead of relinking the fire, you're going to bring about the Age of Dark, right? So the Age of Fire is capitalism, right? The game lies to you and builds you up about, oh man, you can totally pull yourself up by your bootstraps and join the elite if you just go and do all the things we want you to do. But really, it's a complete bullshit system that exists to maintain the powerful, right? Meanwhile, the Age of Dark is communism, right? It's the age of of humanity, the people. So the game is suggesting that maybe you want to bring out communism because that's going to be good for all the people, and everything you've heard about it is just a propaganda from the powerful, right? So does this mean that Hidetaka Miyazaki, the guy who makes these games, the director on these games, is he a communist? Unfortunately, no, he's not. Because in the game, there are 2 places where the Age of Dark, or the Dark, kind of took hold. One is sunken, like a flooded city full of ghosts. And the other one is in the DLC, this place called Ulasil, which is like literally sinking into the void, and all the people have been turned into horrible monsters, right? Eventually you meet this personification of the dark, and it's again another horrific monster, right? So what is this game saying, right? What I believe Hidetaka Miyazaki's political perspective is that he thinks that capitalism is bad. He sees why capitalism is bad, and he sees all the bad things it does. But then he looks at what communism has done. And to be clear, I'm not saying this is my opinion. I'm saying this is his. He sees the examples of communism where it's been tried, and he thinks it's gone really badly. So he doesn't know what to do. And so this informs the overall vibe of kind of despair in this game, as exemplified by one of the first people you meet, the crestfallen knight. Just like, it's just depressing and sad because he doesn't know what to do. Capitalism is bad, but also communism is bad. What are you supposed to do? That's basically my political theory of Dark Souls. And bring it on, Vati Vidya. Bring it on. I will fight you in a cage match. Yeah.
Go on then.
Nice.
What do you think,
Well,
Ed? What do you think? Do you adhere to my political philosophy?
as discussed, I feel like I've played Dark Souls once, and I haven't watched lots of lore videos about what Dark Souls means. And
I
I
mean,
feel
the truth
like
is
the
that
average player will come
mean-
out of Dark Souls not really knowing what the fuck happened, but
No,
having had
no,
a good
absolutely not.
time, and that was
Yes.
certainly my experience. So I don't feel qualified to assess,
Yeah.
but of course, you've got form, Alex, of being right so frequently that
Thank you,
I'd be
thank
a
you.
fool to bet against your analysis of Dark Souls. And
Right.
Sophie's nodding,
Genuinely,
having not even played Dark Souls, agreeing with you. So
Yeah, I don't know what any of this is.
it's
I don't even know what
genuinely-
capitalism
game.
is.
Genuinely, I think, and this goes into Elden Ring. One day, maybe we'll talk about my grand political theory of Elden Ring. But I think he's basically Miyazaki's like a sock dem, soft left guy, pretty much. And I think that comes out in the games. But it's interesting, and frankly, that's the thing I like about those games the most. I played Dark Souls a while ago, and I didn't finish it. I got up to Seath the Scaleless, and I was just like, "Fuck this, man! I'm just done. I can't be asked anymore." I probably, the thing about these games is I know that I could beat all the bosses if I just kept at it. One day, I just kept doing it, I'll beat them. There's no doubt. So I just would
weird.
get
It's such
bored
a
of it.
strange thing, isn't it? Because Seath to Scaleless, that was on my list that I've got here of ones that I beat in 2 or
Yeah.
3 attempts.
Well,
I found that one so easy, and you seem to have
didn't-
breezed through the one that I found so hard.
Have you
Yeah, I-
tried
I
getting
mean-
good, Alex? Have you tried?
I could have got good. It's not that. It's just like I don't even think I fought him that many times. It was just something
Was
where
it-
because it was
It's like the
he-
invisible
he-
platform section.
No, it wasn't even that. It was just like he's surrounded by he surrounds himself by spikes, and the entire floor is spikes. And there's not. It's been a while since I played it, so I can't really remember exactly what my issue with the boss was. But I'm just like, you know what? I just can't be asked. I'm like so many bosses of this. I've just not really enjoyed. I don't really enjoy huge difficulty in these games. So as you said, you played Unseen Smoke, and then you beat did it over and over again, and then when you beat him, you had a really great feeling. I don't know. Genuinely, I think it might be a psychological problem of mine that I don't really get that feeling after beating a boss that I've tried over and over again. I mainly just feel relief that I don't have to do it anymore. So
That's
I just
how I
kind
feel
of
in most games other than Soulsborne games, and, even then only in some of them.
yeah.
But
I
I would also like to add as well, just for the Dark Souls heads out there, that I didn't fight the DLC bosses, the optional DLC bosses.
Yeah.
And I know they've got a reputation for being some of the hardest ones in the game.
Yeah,
so
there's
when
some
I'm
big dragon
bad-mouthing
that-
how easy the second half of the game
Yeah.
was, I'm not saying that I beat the DLC ones, which are meant to be
Yeah.
like the hardest in the game. I didn't try those. I was just going for the sort of base experience.
I was, I think I'm pretty good at games. I beat Bloodborne, I beat Demon Souls, I basically beat Elden Ring. I think I'm gonna completely beat Silksong. I've got the first normal ending. I'm going for the special ending now. So I'm pretty good at games, but it's really just about how long I can just hold out my patience to go through it. And in that game, I was just kind of like I just didn't give a shit anymore. And I knew that I was basically impatient because I really like the lore, and I'm really interested in, I love the way it's scattered through the game. It's super obscure, and you have to really research it and stuff to find out all these subtleties to it. I mean, genuinely, I genuinely think my theory I've just laid out is the intended kind of meaning, quote unquote, of the game that they have. But no one else has said that. So if I'm right, then it's incredibly obscure, despite all these people doing like all these long videos and even books about the lore. If I'm wrong, well, just another way of interpreting the game. There are very few games where that it's possible to have that much depth in the kind of storytelling. So that's kind of what I really like about these games. But then I often feel like getting through the difficulty is just like the price I have to pay to get to the interesting stuff. And eventually I'm just like, you know what, I can just get this from a YouTube video, and I give up.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, my experience of the story of the game was that it was just sort of about disillusionment and sort of hopelessness was all I really got from what was going on. But the gameplay carried me through. So, listener, your mileage may vary. I think we should wrap up on the Dark Souls part of this podcast because if YouTube's anything to go by, we could talk about this indefinitely.
Look forward to my 13-part, 6-hour-long video series about my theory. Any day now.
A spin-off from Red Barrels. So, Alex, I believe that you are slated to go next in this wonderful podcast.
Yes,
what game is it that you're going to be talking about, dear comrade and friend?
I haven't played a game. I've played multiple games.
Sofie, we're going... Oh, I see.
No, apparently not. I've played 50 games. That's right. I have been playing UFO 50, a game that came out, I think, last year on Steam, but a month or two ago on the Switch, though I played on the Switch too. And this game, I waited for the Switch because this feels like, it's literally, the entire concept of it is that it's a fictional console. The idea is that ostensibly the actual people who made this game, led by a team led by Derek Yu, who is the developer who made the Spelunky games. That's what he's most famous for. Basically, they made all these games. The whole team of people made all these games. But the kind of fiction is that they, for some reason, went in a storage, like storage unit, an abandoned storage unit one day, and they found these. It's actually 3 consoles, the LX1 through 3, from the 1980s, and they found 50 games there for it. And this is the collection of them. That's the theory. But what it means is that there are literally 50 whole games. And when I say they're whole, some are longer than others. One of them is an RPG, which takes dozens of hours to complete, apparently. I'm going to be totally honest. I have not finished a single one of these games. There are literally 50 of them. Come on. But I have played all of them. I've went through the whole bunch. And I'd say they're all based. The idea is because it's a fictional console, we're supposed to see the kind of development of these games. All these games have like fake release dates starting from about 1982 and ending in 1989. So it's pretty much over the entire 80s. And so in the same way, back when the Nintendo, the NES came out, the early games were very simple. And by the time the console kind of wrapped up in like, again, the late 80s, the games were all like way more complicated and way more advanced technically because they so heavily honed in on how to make that system work. And also they added a whole bunch of different chips into the games as well, the cartridges. So you had this massive kind of progression of the games, even on a single console. And that's what this is kind of supposed to kind of display. And I should say, a lot of the games, I mean, overall, I suppose, I should maybe get to my ultimate point now, which is that overall I was a bit disappointed with this. You can't deny it is a colossal achievement to have put together all of these games. All of these games are at minimum very competently made, right? They're very well made. This game took something like 8 years to produce. I saw a video interview with a couple of the guys who made it from 2017, and they're saying, yeah, we think we're going to have the game out next year. They didn't manage it. Unfortunately.
They just missed that deadline.
Just a little. Just a little.
By a
As I said, it did come out. It came out last year. But so, no one can deny the achievement here. Making all these games, they're all most of them are completely unique. There are some sequels to each other, but even the sequels are very different from each other. For instance, one of the big kind of series, I guess, is called Campanella. The first game are like these little single screen levels where you're piloting a little UFO that becomes the company's mascot after this around this little maze. And it's got quite nice physics on it as it moves. That's kind of the main thing. The next game is like Campanella 2 is like a procedurally generated world where you can explore the whole world, and you can go in caves, and in the caves you're out of the ship and you're running around as a guy shooting stuff. So that's even more advanced. And the third game, it's the penultimate game of the series of the collection, Campanella 3. That's like an early attempt at like 3D where you're going into the screen and you're shooting these. It's like a 3D shooter, a bit like Star Fox, but with like all 2D graphics and like the absolute most that like an 8-bit system could have done at the time. So like that's kind of the progression of it. But there's also just a huge amount of variety. There are 2 golf games, which strikes me as a bit excessive, frankly. There are quite a lot of like strategy games. There's a scrolling beat 'em up, which is actually pretty cool. I mean, it's certainly as it's like something like £16. This game, I think it's about, or maybe it's more like £25. It's in that range. It's not a full price game, and for that you get literally 50 games, all of which you could put hours into if you really wanted. There's a horror themed point and click adventure. Lots of really cool and interesting stuff. I suppose my number one problem with the game and why it was a bit of a disappointment, and maybe this is just because I'm just too big of a nerd, but I just constantly, these games are, while they're styled in the style of 8-bit games, they aren't 8-bit games. And very frequently I'm just like, yeah, come on, that game wouldn't have come out in the 80s. There are quite a lot of roguelikes in this collection. Roguelikes, I mean, they technically existed in like even the 70s, I think, technically, but like they were a dormant genre certainly in kind of on a console like the NES at this time. And yet there's a whole bunch of them here. There are a lot of games that have randomly or procedurally generated levels, which is, again, Derek Yu, who is the lead on this whole thing, made Spelunky, which is pretty much the game that repopularized the roguelike, and is kind of the reason we have so many around now, is that original game. And that also had these procedurally generated levels, just like roguelikes do. And so you kind of just see that come out here. Also, if you're making 50 games, not having to design all the levels for 50 games will probably become in handy. But at the same time, I'm just like, you wouldn't get anywhere near as many games like this that would do that. Almost all the games, again, this seems like a weird criticism, but
is that a problem though? Is that a problem? Because if you want to play 8-bit games that could have actually come out in the 1980s, you can play 8-bit games that did come out in the 1980s.
You can, yeah, I know. I think this is a me problem more than maybe a problem with the game. I just like see these things and it rubs me. I'm just like, well, come on, this wouldn't happen.
Pull the other one.
Come on.
Bells on it.
There are also, just in general, almost all the games are like maybe a bit too unique for the time. They're like, oh, it's a platformer with a twist, and I'm like, that twist wouldn't have happened back in the 80s. There aren't enough just generic platformers in this, for instance. They're all like, oh man, it's platformer, but when you die, you turn into a weird spirit that has to find its way back to its body. I think it's actually based on a game called the real game I think that's based on. Name has just fallen out of my head, so that's not really a good example. But like all of them are like maybe a bit. They just clearly have a more modern design sensibility behind it. Back in the actual 80s, these games were like, oh man, you put out a platformer, pretty much the most generic platformer you've seen. But like that's maybe the third platformer you've ever played. So you could kind of get away with that stuff then. Not to say there weren't interesting and unique things happening in games back then, but like in a way, these games are designed too well. A lot of these games are very quirky and weird and just simple. Like, for instance, one of these games is called Party House. This one's got a lot of buzz. People really like this one. This game is essentially a roguelike card builder, or deck builder, I should say, where it's a party and you're trying to invite people to your party, but essentially the people are really cards, so you have to like work out which people are going to be on your Rolodex, i.e. your deck, to see who comes up, And if you get too many troublemakers, the party will be cancelled, but because the police will come, and you need to get some sort of objective completed, but within a certain number of parties. And it's just like, that game would never have come out for a console in the 1980s. That is like, that is pretty much a game that would come out now, you know?
Mm.
And again, I'm just griping about it. It's you know, I don't know. It rubs me wrong. It just every time the verisimilitude of it fails when that happens, for me anyway. But there's no denying that there are some really good games in it. Games I particularly enjoy, I'm looking at a big list of them here, are Seaside Drive, which is, again, a shooter. It's basically a shoot 'em up, but you are a car, like I guess it's supposed to be like a convertible. And when you drive forward, your car shoots kind of diagonally to the right. But then when you press back on the D-pad, your car does a kind of a power slide and goes backwards because it's moving forward all the time. But it moves backwards on the screen, and the shooting arc moves to the left. And so through moving forward and power sliding backwards, you move where you're aiming backwards and forwards. And that's a pretty cool game. It looks cool and stuff, but like even then, that would have just been a normal shooter back in the 80s. This weird kind of like conceit of it being a car and you doing power slides, that wouldn't have happened. And so this is an example. One of the games is an idle clicker game. They didn't even exist in the 1980s. Stuff like that. This is the stuff that
haven't
annoys
you always wanted to live in a world where you know what an idle clicker would have been like in the 1980s? Surely this is a dream come true.
Maybe. Partly, I don't know. Look, I love indie games. There are plenty of great indie games, but something about especially the kind of indie game scene of like the early mid 2010s, very much something that Derek Hugh and Spelunky were part of, kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It's in a way, ironically, this game is a bit itself, like in a non-meta way, a time capsule, because it feels like it's kind of the indie game kind of ethos of maybe about 10 years ago, because that's just how long it took them to make the game.
So it feels less like a collection of undiscovered games from the 80s and more like a collection of undiscovered 80s style indie games from the 2010s.
Yeah, a bit like that.
Okay.
Which is a weird thing. And, it's not like, plenty of great indie games in the 2010s. But just something about it, I can't really put my finger on what kind of rubs me the wrong way about it. It's just like, I mean, I like, there's that side-scrolling beat-em-up that I mentioned. It's called Fist Hell. It's basically stars 4 of like the wokest teens you've ever seen. And it's just like, well, that wouldn't have been in the 80s. That would have been 4 muscle dudes. Come on. And just,
the anti-woke turn has begun.
The anti-woke turn.
I was like, is it supposed to be accurate, or is it just supposed to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek accurate?
It is very accurate in a lot of ways, right? I mean, literally, the story of the game is it's meant to be a set of games made in the 1980s that have just been discovered. Like, every game, and I'll get into this in a moment, there's like a kind of a meta story of the whole games, because all the games are made by the same company called UFO Soft. And so all the credits in the game, when you actually beat them, apparently, as I said, I haven't beaten the games, but I've seen it on the internet. When you see it, you get credit screens, and it has fictional names of who the creators were. And like you can, to a certain degree, like track it across these 2 games are kind of similar. Oh, that's because they were made by the same guys. Things like that. So they are going for like real realism in a lot of ways. So when you get these elements that just seem a bit culturally off for what they're supposed to be, it just every time I just like, come on, it's jarring. I would have just loved it. I suppose the perfect version of this game would be if it really did feel just like 50 amazing games from the 80s, right? And because of this stuff, that it just I think most people wouldn't care, even if they know all about game history and stuff. But there's just something about it that just rubs me the wrong way. Every time I see it, I'm like, come on.
I think it's legitimate to feel how you feel, but listening to what you're saying, I know that would not bother me at all.
It wouldn't bug me either.
It's definitely a me issue. It's definitely a me issue. Another thing that is pretty cool and interesting about this game is that I've been lying this whole time. There aren't
You
50 games
son
in
of
this.
a
There aren't
gun.
50 games in this
I
package.
trusted you, Alex.
Did the YouTuber
Because there are actually 51 games in this pack.
Oh my
That's
god.
right, yeah.
Is the one game the game itself?
No.
Whoa.
No, there is
It's
a
like
secret
many
game.
triangles in a triangle.
So
52 games.
Do you count the triangle? the triangles are in, you know? Anyway,
triangle.
sorry.
Yeah, no. There is another literal game in this game in which basically there, as I mentioned, there is a whole meta story about this company called UFO Soft that you can each game that you choose has a little box that like tells you basically a little summary of what the game actually is, like what the controls are, some other details about the game, and then there's a little kind of lore blurb about it that like says like, oh, this game was inspired by the main developer's love of pizza or something. Frequently it's just that vague, but like the idea is that these are supposed to be these quote unquote game developers are supposed to be real people that go through it. And there is, when you pause the game, one of the options is terminal, and this takes you to some sort of text entry screen that doesn't really make any sense, and then you can put in a code. You don't really understand where that's supposed to come from. But there are secret codes in the game that you can find, and these lead to basically a little scavenger hunt through the collection that eventually unlocks access to this 51st game called Miasma Tower. And this is like an autobiographical game by one of the developers telling about the production of the game in this game company and like how they're overworked and stuff. So there is a little bit of a political element of how game development is difficult and bad, especially in the 80s, I guess. But it's basically a whole kind of like a secret story that's going on at the same time. And like it gets pretty fucking deep. There's like multiple levels to this whole thing. Basically, at one point, it seems that there is a murder. There's like a murder mystery. It seems like one of the developers may have been murdered or something happened to them. They disappeared. Like genuinely, you see like one of them turn up in the games and then their name never appears in the credits again. Things like that. And like people are like trying to piece this mystery together. There is actually a bit more, I guess, I don't know if you call it politics, but philosophy in that it seems that the head of the game studio is obsessed with this real book that that apparently it's called The Grasshopper: Games, Life and Utopia. And this came out in the 1978. And it's about this guy wrote this kind of treatise, it seems. I have not read this book. I'm sorry, listeners. I'm not that dedicated. But apparently this book is about how in a post-scarcity utopia where no one has to work anymore, games will be like the number one thing we do. Games will be central to human experience because we won't have work anymore. That's basically the theory of this book. And so that's a real philosophy book that this game is also kind of in conversation with or talking about anyway. I don't want to go into too many spoilers if you want to get into this, but there are theories about why exactly they made 50 games and why no one heard of the games. They weren't real. Possibly there was some sort of time capsule plan for them or something. It's that element is really interesting. Unfortunately, I did basically look on the internet to find out what the codes were because I didn't want to do all the stuff to do the full mystery, but I played all the 3 levels of the Miasma Tower for this. But like it definitely is something that like Dark Souls will need to be put together by people, a community over time. Unfortunately, to be honest, I don't know how well this game is done on the basis that I could find one video on the entirety of YouTube that summarized what the mystery was. And that video is like 10 months old. So, and
Wow.
at the end, they were like, "Oh, there's still a lot of mysteries we don't know the answers to." So I don't know how much further they've got. So genuinely, I would hope someone makes a more detailed video that explains the whole thing because I'd be interested to find out what they're going for. So it's really overall, I'd say it's a really
incredibly
interesting,
well received game, wasn't it?
very
well
yeah.
received.
It got very good reviews all over the place. It's kind of a difficult game to review because because we're unprofessionals, and I will remind our listeners, not paid to do this. We don't actually have a full obligation to finish these games. maybe paid game journalists do have something approaching an obligation to finish their games, but literally no one, I don't know if anyone has finished all I'm sure some people have finished all 50 games, but very few, and it's not really reasonable to expect a reviewer to do that. And, undeniably...
Pretty disappointed in you here, Alex, to be honest.
I'm sorry. I've let you down. I've let the podcast down. I've let my school down. I'm sorry. I know you're not angry. You're disappointed. I get it.
No, I'm mainly angry.
Oh, well. We'll work that out later. But yeah, I mean, I feel bad. I've been bad on this. There are undeniably some really cool little games in it. And, and when I say little, they're all, I mean, I'd say pretty much they're all games that at least could be released by themselves on like Steam or something for a fairly low price. Some of them could go for higher prices. Some of them are fairly small, but they're all like fully featured. They're all like a good old chunk of levels for this game. And if you want to get into like high scores and stuff, you could genuinely put in a great deal of time to pretty much all of these games. So that alone is a pretty huge achievement. I feel like part of the very positive reception has just been people blown away by that achievement. It's like undeniably...
Like how much there is.
Yeah, just like, these, there aren't that many people who worked on this game. It's like, let's see, actually on the Wikipedia page, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 designers. And I think that's probably mainly it. And then a composer. Made 50 games. That's an incredible achievement, even if it did take however long it did. And so I think no one wants to slag them off. They worked incredibly hard to make all this. It's certainly a great achievement. But I think people have been a little bit wowed by the achievement and not enough like critical on the actual quality of the games themselves, which overall are good, but I don't think they're like incredible. I don't know how many... I kind of had to push myself to play all 50 to talk about them on here. And I don't
Seems like
know.
a bit of a gimmick to me.
Yeah, it is a little bit, but it's like one of those gimmicks that's also a colossal amount of work to do. So you can't really have a go at them for it. But I don't know how many
Yes,
of
I
these
can.
Oh, well, sorry. I can't,
And
but
I
you
will.
can feel free. You can feel free.
Just because you
Get
can
'em,
make 50
Sofie.
games doesn't mean you should.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a bit disappointed with it. I mean, it was certainly worth the money. No, I can't complain about that. But I don't know how many of these games I'm going to continue playing going forward. Yeah.
Cool. I don't know. When I first heard of it, I thought that doesn't sound very appealing.
Yeah,
I would rather just have one good game rather than 50
Yeah, same.
like quite
I
good
don't
games.
know.
I will
I'd never
say-
heard of
And
it. I'd never even heard of it. You'd said
Oh,
it
really?
today, and I was like, I've never heard of this video game.
You didn't hear about it when I mentioned it, like before we recorded
I knew you were gonna say
a
this.
month or two ago?
No.
Great.
Never heard of it then either. No, I don't know. Same as Ed. I'm just like, well, that sounds really unappealing. I don't know. I'm not really a minigame enjoyer.
Yeah.
Just generally, I don't really love minigames in games. I have a massive issue with
You're a
Gwent.
macro game.
Well, I mean,
kind
Yeah.
of person.
I can't really stress
I will
enough.
take every opportunity to complain about Gwent. And I know
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not really a mini game because the
Yeah.
game is these sort of fairly full-size games, but that does just sound unappealing to me because it does just
I
sound
see, I
like
see.
minigame simulator, and I'm like, oh, that's not. I don't want to play that.
Well, you know, something that's interesting about this game is that I do think it's kind of inspired, and like we're going to get a bit spicy here. It's basically inspired by piracy. I think all of us have the experience of like, maybe the first time we ever got to try emulators, probably when you two were little kids and I was depressingly old.
38.
And I was like, oh wow, suddenly I have access to basically every single NES game, every single Super Nintendo game, every single Mega Drive game, etc., etc. And I could play any one of them right now. And what I end up doing is playing maybe a couple of minutes of one and be like, fuck, move on. And it kind of having so many all at once just kind of diminishes your ability to really appreciate any one of them. I mean, I think it's mainly it takes discipline, really, to just be like, okay, well, I'm going to actually properly play this one game instead of be distracted by the 6,000 other ones. But
Yeah, like I said, just because you can doesn't mean you should, I guess, is
Yeah.
the sort of main... Not that I'm criticizing it for... It's just like, it's such an unappealing concept for me.
Mm.
I think I'd find it like looking at Netflix, where it's like, well, yeah, there's so many choices, so I don't really know what to watch because there's kind of too many choices. It's like, it sounds like analysis paralysis nightmare. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like, yeah, not very enticing. But it was interesting to hear about.
I'll also say, in contrast to this game, there's another game that came out recently called Eartheon. This is a game by Yuzo Koshiro, who's the guy who did the music for the Streets of Rage games on the Mega Drive and a bunch of he's like one of the most well-known game composers. But he did also, like, his company, he owned the company that made Streets of Rage 2 as well. And so he has had a background in developing games. And he and some other people made this game called Eartheon, which is literally a Mega Drive game, i.e. it will run on a Mega Drive. They're going to put out cartridges that run on original Mega Drives from the 90s, and it's like a shoot 'em up game, and it's also like the best shoot 'em up, like best Mega Drive game ever, like the most advanced Mega Drive game ever, with the knowledge of all these years of development. Like they got so much out of that system, like the homebrew scene and so on. So it's like incredible for a Mega Drive game, but it's also literally a Mega Drive game, and it feels like a Mega Drive game in almost every way. And that is a lot more authentic to its period than I feel these games are. So I would recommend people also recommend that people buy Eartheon, which just came out for the Switch like a week or two ago.
And also a Mega Drive.
And also a Mega Drive, if you want, you can. Like, I think they're going to be selling it at a later date. But like, people have like extracted the ROM from the game, because the game is literally, when you're playing, it's on a Mega Drive emulator. They've literally extracted the ROM and put it on like those little cartridges you can buy that have an SD slot in it for an SD card.
I'm glad to hear this. Like, it's going off topic. I mean, Xbox have been really dropping the ball lately. I feel like they're not long for this world as a hardware manufacturer. So I think it's about time that Sega stepped back up.
Bring back the Dreamcast too. Dreamcast too. What if Sega bought the the Xbox brand or something? That would,
the
that's not going to happen.
Nope.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much all I have to say about UFO 50. An incredible achievement. Slightly less good of a game, but still pretty good. And now we're getting into maybe the most contentious part of the games, because I don't even know what they are. But all I know is that Sofie has opinions. I
have opinions
about The Sims.
Mm-hmm.
As a whole series.
Series.
So let's go.
You don't know what they are. You don't know what a minute ago, you pointed out that you'd mentioned UFO 50 briefly in passing once. Sofie has definitely behind the scenes told us all about our Sims opinions.
I mean, come on.
It's pretty bad if you've forgotten that, Alex.
I was utilizing a kind of dramatic, poetic irony.
I don't believe you.
So was
making it easier for our listeners by
I don't believe you.
Being the voice of the listener, going into this new section.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So yeah, The Sims, I guess.
I'm sorry, Sofie, that you had to
right.
had to go through that.
It's fine. I will educate you on my opinions now, Alex, and dear listener as well.
I think we drank a lot that night, so
yeah. Well,
not enough to forget Sofie's
my
Sims
very
opinions.
strong opinions about The Sims. So yeah, I guess I'll be talking about The Sims for no other reason than we are talking a little bit about EA today, the news surrounding EA today. But I also have been playing The Sims 2 recently for just a bit of nostalgia, for reasons I sort of briefly mention in my segment, is that like I occasionally resort to playing The Sims when my life feels a little bit strange, a little bit upside down, because it's very comforting and nostalgic for me. But The Sims 4 makes me really angry, so more often than not I usually just play The Sims 2, which is definitely the most nostalgic game of the series for me. Yeah, and I guess this is gonna feel a bit like a eulogy, I guess. But for reasons we will talk about. But let me take you back, dear listener. The year was 2003. Maybe, or something, or sometime along those lines. My brother finally, after weeks of asking, gave me permission to play his save game in The Sims 1. This was a life simulation game wherein you could build a house, make a humanoid character known as a Sim, and place them in the house to live. Eat, sleep, bathe, work out, learn to play the piano, get a job, improve your skills, get promoted, get fired, throw a party, fall in love, get married, have a child, die in a fire, making mac and cheese, rinse and repeat. This is the gameplay loop of The Sims. It's life. The gameplay loop is living. I was only allowed to play with the Pleasant family because I was playing on my brother's save, but they were more than enough for me who had curiously watched my brother play over his shoulder for like weeks at that point. Unfortunately, within hours of playing the game for the very first time, a member of the Pleasant family fell asleep in the pool and died, resulting in a permanent ban from playing any of my brother's Sims games. So thus begun my long and tumultuous love-hate affair with The Sims. I later managed to procure my own save game and played hours and hours of The Sims 1 with all of the expansion packs at the time. With The Sims 2, when that released in 2004, showing off slick new 3D graphics and complex Sims with memories and relationships, realistic textures, I was lucky enough to get my pre-ordered copy on the day it came out. I was so excited I took it to school the next day to show my friends.
Just the box.
Just the box, and I was the coolest kid in school that day. I took my box of The Sims 2. It was this really big box because it was like one of the first games that had like 4 discs to install it.
Wow.
And it was this really big box, and I took it to school to show my friends, and I was like the coolest kid for like a single day. And then I went back to being a kid that people just forgot went to the school. Anyway, it's okay. I wasn't bullied. I was just forgotten, which is, I think, preferred, actually. So this is also around that time, oddly, that The Sims took on a distinctly gendered image, perhaps due to its reputation as a quote-unquote dollhouse simulator, but it became heavily associated with girls, i.e. fake gamers. By the time The Sims 3 came out in June 2009 with an exciting open world mechanic, which The Sims had never had at that point, I had a proud collection of all The Sims 2 expansions and stuff packs to replace with the new series.
How much did that cost you?
Well, my dad worked at a video game store, so I got...
Wow.
Yeah.
How do we not know this?
And took out a second mortgage and
part
then...
of Sofie
Yeah,
law.
okay, so you didn't work at a video game store. My dad used to work at basically a South African equivalent of Blockbuster. So I had like all the access I could have dreamt of to
I don't want to have to say
video
it,
games.
Alex, but Sophie's told us
Yeah,
this.
I have
before.
told you this.
I will say, as soon as you said Blockbuster, I
Okay,
remembered.
video games, okay.
But the issue is that I did not associate
Yes.
that you would also have games at the Blockbuster. Of course you would.
We had games at the Blockbuster. We didn't have PC games, but my dad basically, because of obviously he worked in this industry, he literally had connections
In
to
the
like
biz.
EA.
Oh,
So
wow.
I remember specifically when I got The Sims 2, we went to the EA offices to pick up a copy.
Mhm.
Because they had organized one for us or something like that. Like the EA office is like in Johannesburg because we like, I don't know if it was like the EA offices or it was like a sub office, whatever. It said EA on the building on the outside. And I remember we went
That's
and
good enough
picked
for
up
me.
my copy. So it's enough for me. So The Sims 4 was released in 2014 to mixed reviews because this version of The Sims boasted, well, nothing in particular, really, except there's no more open world mechanic, and the game is more cartoonish than realistic, and also pools weren't a thing anymore, or toddlers, or babies. Come to think of it, the game was missing a lot of what might have usually been included in previous base games by default. This is foreshadowing, in case you can't tell.
Foreshadowing is a literary device.
Foreshadowing is a literary device. I pirated my entire Sims 3 collection as it would have been extremely costly to afford the entire set at that time. And this trend would continue because for The Sims 4, at time of writing, would you co-hosts like to guess how much 13 expansion packs, 12 game packs, 20 stuff packs, and 19 kit packs would set you back in Great British pounds today?
What if my dad worked for a company that could get him for cheap, though?
Yeah, but you don't. So how much is it going to cost you, do you think? How much do you reckon? I'll give you each one guess.
£1,000.
£1,000.
I don't think it's going to be that much. I think it's going to be like £800.
Ed is right.
Oh.
If
Oh
you,
my
dear listener,
God.
guessed a total cost of £974.35
Oh.
or $1,064.45 in USD, congratulations. That is how much it would cost you to own the entire Sims 4 collection at time of writing. They are coming out with new packs all the time.
That is a terrifying
It's a
quantity of money.
10-year-old game now,
Yeah.
and they are still coming out with game packs and stuff. There's no plan for The Sims 5, apparently. So this is just going to keep happening. It's just going to keep getting more and more expensive and bloated, which I will get onto in a second. So The Sims 1, which sold over 200 million copies and began as a satirical commentary on consumerism designed by Will Wright, has become, in its fourth iteration, so bloated with its expensive content that players consistently complain about its unplayability, bugs, and lack of satisfying gameplay or content. I have such strong feelings about The Sims that my Twitch stream has a dedicated exclamation point Sims command warning chatters not to bring it up, lest they wish me to go on time-consuming and strangely passionate rants about the downfall of the franchise. The Sims 4 is a terrible game. It's a terrible game. It lacks the innovation, the craftsmanship, the storytelling, even the sense of humor of previous entries, and it charges you a fortune for the illusion of having any of these. It seems to think that if it can give you more stuff, that's what's going to create satisfying gameplay for players. But players have made it very clear that it's the gameplay loop itself that's unsatisfying. Things just feel like they don't matter. Sims just feel like toys and not characters, like they might have in previous iteration. I played the game, as many others, with an extensive list of mods just to make the game even mildly interesting. And I would still only play obsessively over the period of a couple days before forgetting about it again completely for 6 months, which is an experience that seems really, really similar to other Sims players, like across the Sims playing universe. A lot of people have this habit of like playing it obsessively for a short period of time, forgetting about it for 6 months, and then picking it up again. And I really do think it's mostly due to nostalgia. I think that's the main reason people play it at this point. I now like to refer to myself as so many months, quote unquote, clean from The Sims because I only tend to play it when my life is feeling distinctly out of control. And the game is bad for me. Like, it makes me angry. It stresses me out when it just doesn't work right. You'll have like staged a picture perfect wedding for your Sims only to have all of the guests sit up and sit down and stand up constantly like they're playing musical chairs. It's so frustrating. Just Sims will just like have long queues of actions and then won't do any of them because it's, they've gotten stuck or they just don't think, just basic things don't work. There's bugs in the game that have been there since launch that are still not fixed.
Wow.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And for like a game that seems to be so connected to its community, supposedly there's just so much that just hasn't been fixed despite so much player feedback.
Connected to its community in the same way that a tapeworm is connected to
it's
a
just
human.
a parasite. It's just a parasite, man. Literally, it is just a parasite. So yeah, I've actually recently been playing The Sims 2 again, and I'm just so floored to visit it after playing The Sims 4, as it genuinely seems like so much more of an innovative game, even though it's like, that's from 2004. It's many, many years its junior. So Chance, in the gameplay of The Sims 2, Chance plays a much larger role in the game than in 4, where everything can be controlled to like every minute detail. Whereas in The Sims 2, making a poor leadership decision at work can lead to like losing skill points, a demotion, or even a firing, I think sometimes even deaths. The Sims 4 has no such chance for negative consequences. It's like really coddles the player, basically. Sims in The Sims 2 are vulnerable. They can become ill, they can die randomly in lightning strikes or fires, leading to a much more chance-led gameplay experience that feels dynamic, like life should. But Sims in The Sims 4 are immune to any illnesses, and the well-loved burglar character from every previous iteration was completely missing from the fourth game. Loved so much that there's even a mod to add back in this burglar character who's just like a random chance of burglaring your Sims home and taking your stuff, basically. When negative interactions happen between Sims and The Sims 2, they can stay mad about it for days or even weeks before they'll return to normal socialization, making them feel like real characters with personalities and relationships. But in The Sims 4, until relatively recently, Sims weren't even capable of having memories. Like, you could have a married Sim cheat on their spouse in front of them, and then they might be mad about it. But if you just perform like enough like chats and entertain with joke, then you can sort of restore things pretty quickly because they just don't have any memories. And yeah, it just makes them feel just like Barbie dolls, but like even less, because at least I can project a personality onto a Barbie doll. Can't even do that in The Sims 4. The Sims 4 I think my sort of key central sort of critique, I guess, is that I feel like The Sims 4 seems to have misunderstood what people loved about both their game and also about life. That when we were given a quote-unquote dollhouse simulator in the year 2000, what people enjoyed was the potential chaos of a dollhouse that plays back. After all, that's what life is about, and as a life simulation game, that feels appropriate. But The Sims 4 has a laundry-themed expansion pack wherein Sims can do laundry. Not only do they have to collect the laundry in laundry baskets, but then they also have to take the laundry to the washing machine. They have to put the laundry then into the washing machine. These are all separate actions. Then they need to press the start button, and then they need to wait for the laundry to finish. And then when the laundry is finished, they need to take it out of the washing machine and then put it in the dryer. And then they need to press the start button on the dryer. And then they have to wait for the dryer to finish. And then once the dryer is finished, they have to fold the laundry and they have to put it away. And I'm sorry, but if I wanted to do laundry, I'd simply do my laundry instead of playing a video game that I'm probably playing in order to avoid doing my laundry. And I just like most of the time as well, just like The Sims in the game, I end up just forgetting to press the start button on the washing machine anyway, so the laundry never gets done. Just like in real life. But that's not a life simulation game. That's just the real monotony of life, and that was never really the point of The Sims, I would argue. The Sims 4 does, however, get one thing right, as has the franchise for most of its run, and that is its diversity representation is almost second to none. In like the entire gaming industry, it's almost second to none, I feel like. Even in The Sims 1, a game that was released in 2000, it was possible for Sims to be involved in romantic relationships with the same sex with zero commentary on the matter. Like, it was just a given because that's just life, you know?
Yeah.
The Sims 4 has expanded its representation over the years in response to player feedback to expand its depictions of coily hairstyles, more nuanced skin colors, gender identities, surgery scars, and disabilities. That's genuinely impressive. It seems like to the one area, it did take them some time. I remember the skin color options when the game first came out were heavily criticized, but that is feedback that they genuinely operated on and acted on and made improvements on, seemingly in lieu of all the bugs that they didn't fix. But I think I would prefer that, I suppose, instead of the bugs. So now you can have, like, you know, Sims that represent you in an unplayable world, but at least they represent you. That's nice. But that's where the news of the most recent Saudi acquisition of EA gets fans of the Sims franchise a little bit concerned.
Surely that's like a perfect analogy for like representation politics and under liberal capitalism, no?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's some representation, but you're fundamentally playing a game which is broken and rigged against you. So
you should keep that
really, Sims is still a fantastic, a fantastic commentary on contemporary society.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Yeah, I have so many qualms about the game. Like, I do think it genuinely, and like I said, obviously it was initially intended as like a satirical commentary on consumerism, like the very sort of, very famously, like kind of American shopping network music that played like during the buy mode of the like shopping catalog. It's very deliberately sort of in, you know, creating this very specific, very mall vibe, interpretation of America. So it's clearly like quite critical, but then obviously it just becomes the very monster that it criticizes, and it's just 10 times bigger than the monster it ever took a look at. Like, it is just so grotesque at this stage, like almost £1,000 to own the entire collection of a video game that originally critiqued consumerism is just hilarious, and also just sad.
And it also seems like a lot of the, you know, the cost of buying all these things is one very large issue.
Yes,
but there's also the monetization affects the game itself.
Absolutely, it affects the gameplay as well.
So, for instance, from what it sounds like, that burglar, a beloved thing that would happen, or a weird burglar would come in and steal your Sims things. Well, if you want to sell people things for their Sims house with real money, you can't have that stuff get stolen, you know, because people would be up in arms about it. So, okay, well, look, the whole stealing thing is gone now. We're not having a burglar.
I don't even know if it's about that necessarily. I think it's more that they were trying to make like a very family friendly, because The Sims 1, The Sims 2, more The Sims 1 and The Sims 2 were actually quite risque. They actually had quite risque jokes every now and again. It was quite mature. It was intended for mature audiences. But The Sims 3, but much more so The Sims 4, is very much intended for younger audiences,
Really?
children, absolutely. So I think it also minimized the number of interactions that players could have where things wouldn't go their way,
Oh, I
because
see,
they
yeah.
understood, I think, that children would find that frustrating. So when it comes to like, the randomly generated work decisions that you can have, they just don't exist as far as I remember in The Sims 4 anymore. And I think it's genuinely because they worried that it would frustrate players, and specifically that it would frustrate children. It's much more sort of family friendly. A lot of the mods that exist are revolve around making the game a lot less child friendly, like having sex mods, obviously very famously, but also like drugs mods and stuff, just to introduce like a little bit of edge into the game, which I really understand the necessity for, because it is so family friendly. Like, it really does feel like watching an episode of Barney. Like, it is so it's so family friendly. It's
Like
very
corporatized
Teletubbies.
Sims.
Yeah, it's got very round corners. It's extremely child safe, and it's very corporatized that way. And it just feels like it's just to sell the most packs. The other thing I wanted to as well to mention, I won't go on, but like they've also split out content from packs, and I know this because I know a lot of the packs like the back of my hand, because I owned all the third. Well, I didn't own all the ones for the third game, but I had them on my computer. You know what that means. But I remember in the third game there was one pack that was The Sims 3 Supernatural, and it included zombies for some reason. They were really annoying. Fairies, vampires, werewolves, and aliens. But The Sims 4 has separate packs for each of those occult. Every single one are separated into different packs. So whether they're expansion packs or game packs, they've got like witches in one pack, vampires in another pack, werewolves in another pack. And they say it's because they want to give players the opportunity to choose the gameplay experience that they really wanted, right? But if that were the case, they have a as well with their laundry pack, they also have a vacuuming pack. And in that pack, you can actually literally disable one of the main gameplay mechanics of that pack because it's so annoying. So I don't really understand why they're saying we have to release all these different packs to create choice so people can choose to have werewolves in their game but not vampires, whilst at the same time releasing a fucking vacuuming pack that allows you to turn off the gameplay of the vacuuming because it's annoying, but you could still have the vacuums, I guess, for like immersion's sake. I don't really get it. That was one fans voted on, by the way. They got the chance to choose what new pack they wanted, and they voted on vacuums.
Well, I imagine
I fucking hate them too.
I
hate the fans too.
I imagine that, like what you were saying about the laundry pack, where it's like just an absurd number of like little mini interaction, all these
things.
Are
each individual clicks. They're crazy.
But I imagine that happened because in an attempt to justify the fact they're making a laundry pack.
It's just to create content. They're literally laundering content.
Yeah, wow.
That's what they're doing.
That's pro podcasting.
Really yeah.
It feels kind of ahead of its time in a way, and like in a bad way. Like it seemed like it's not exactly the same, but it feels like it's doing a lot of. It's kind of adjacent to a lot of practices that people are doing now, where they're less of a game or more of a platform for other content sometimes. I mean, a better example would be like Roblox or something, which, lets them sell other people's content via Roblox. And
I'm sure
they'll take
they
a
would
cut,
absolutely love to sell mods. Like, I think they would love to sell mods. And I feel like they're probably gaming up to doing something like that, because more and more they've gotten both content creators of The Sims and also like modders more and more involved in the game. To the extent that a lot of the most recent Sims games have houses in neighborhoods, like default houses that are made by very well-known Sims content creators or very well-known modders in the community. So I think clearly they are gearing up to, I feel like, some kind of monetized mod content or monetized custom content, even though I think the spirit of the Sims community is that they would really hate that. But I also think at the same time, there's enough people that probably would buy it, or there's enough children that don't know that you can get this stuff for free that might buy this stuff. I don't know. But that definitely feels like they might be gaming up to that. is like official inclusion of mods and custom content.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's a weird experience, isn't it? It moves away from the game being a product that they sell you to the game being like a platform that
Like
they
a
almost
service,
like charge rent for other people selling you stuff on. I mean, I think Fortnite has just announced that they're going to host user-made stuff that they can sell as well in the same way as Roblox has done. Like, it really feels like that could be a thing that we're going to see more and more of over the next few years, and I don't think it's a good move if you like games that are fun.
Yeah.
And it looks like Sims 4 is ahead of its time in that regard.
And again, like I always talk about this where like people are like, oh, but I love The Sims. And I'm like, I used to like it. I think the reason and I think you guys can see that in me is that the reason I have this frustration is because it comes from a place of love. Like I used to love this game so much, despite the fact that I used to hide it from all my friends because I didn't want to be a fake gamer girl. So I was like, I play real games as well. I play like Call of Duty, but I spend a lot of time playing The Sims. I love the game. I think it was, it's always been really charming. The Sims 2 in particular has such a special place in my heart. I've played so much of that game. It really allowed me to just sort of like do so much storytelling and use my imagination in a way that like even to this day, I experience a bit more activation of my imagination in The Sims 2 than I do in The Sims 4. And also I'm an adult. I'm tired. I don't want to have to imagine my own gameplay, and it's kind of insane that The Sims 4 900 pounds later still have complaints about the fact that the game is boring and there's not enough to do. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Imagine spending £974 on a game and still feeling like you need to mod basic elements back in.
Can you imagine? But you don't
I
have
can't
to. That's just The Sims. So that's my Sims segment. Thanks for listening, everyone.
No, thank you, Sophie. I feel like that was a real tour de force from you there. I feel like you really took me along with your emotions.
Yeah.
That was your magnum opus.
It helps because I have a lot of history with it, so I actually know a lot of like weird information about The Sims.
Absolutely what you're saying. No one who doesn't like game like that would be as animated in being angry about it as you are. So
yeah, it's like I just wanted the best for it. It's just gotten worse and worse over time. And now I have 100% given up on it. Like I said, I talk about myself as being clean from The Sims. I refuse to install The Sims 4, even pirated versions of it, ever again on my computer because it just makes me mad. And I always ended up deleting it like 2 days later. And now, like most people, I'm just invested in like the very few competitors that have come up. We've got like, I forgot, Inzoi was one of them, but seemed like way too realistic for me. I really didn't like the look of it. But another one on Steam, for those of you who might be listening and are interested, there's a game called Paralives, which I've wishlisted and I've followed for like the past like 5 years. It's had a lot of really positive PR. They seem to have like really innovative building tools, and the sort of create a character seems really, you can change their height, which is crazy. You've never been able to do that in 4 years, four iterations of The Sims. You can change the height of the characters. And that looks really promising. And that's kind of, I think, for me and for a lot of ex-Sims fans, kind of the only
Recovering
future we
Sims
have to look
fans.
forward to in life simulation. So,
And I will say, Sophie, I do love your optimism that there might be people listening to this. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And that's Sophie talking about The Sims. But as she alluded to, the story isn't over yet. So we're going to seamlessly segue into talking about the news. And it's back to Sophie.
it's back to me to let you know, dear listener, that I guess unfortunately, infamous video game giant Electronic Arts, i.e. EA, as we've been referring to, was bought for $55 billion by a consortium of buyers, including Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, the PIF, Silver Lake, and Jared Kushner's affinity partners. It appears to be the largest leveraged buyout in history, which is when basically in history.
I think
It's
it's
the
specifically a leveraged
largest
one. though,
leveraged buyout in history, which is when for listeners who don't know, is when something is purchased with a combination of investor money and loans. So yeah, it's the largest leveraged buyout in history. The firms buying EA will contribute approximately $36 billion, with the remaining amount being financed by loans. This $20 billion debt will need to be paid back. So EA's future games will need to be as profitable as humanly or inhumanly possible. So we have that to look forward to. So Saudi Arabia, of course, has been accused of various human rights violations, including arbitrary arrests, unlawful surveillance, use of the death penalty for non-lethal crimes, suppression of dissent and activism, and the discrimination or oppression of women and the LGBTQ plus community, among many others. In March of this year, the PIF, so the nation's sort of investment fund, bought Niantic for $3.5 billion and has hosted major esports tournaments such as the Esports World Cup and the 2028 planned Olympic esports games, as well as having stakes in firms such as Nintendo and Take-Two Interactive, all of this indicating a massive reach into the gaming industry by the Saudi government. EA chairman and CEO Andrew Wilson, who will remain in post, said, quote, "Our creative and passionate teams at EA have delivered extraordinary experiences for hundreds of millions of fans, built some of the world's most iconic IP, and created significant value for our business. This moment is a powerful recognition of their remarkable work."
That's so moving.
So moving. Not corporate at all.
I had a little tear. I got a bit teary.
That was really meaningful. Yeah, it sounds like
I
he's
love
really
when they
choked up
make
to
shareholder value.
I love when they make shareholder value. I love shareholder value. Oh, if only I was a shareholder. Oh, to be a shareholder. I'm sure they'd be very
we
happy
should construct our entire society around that.
the shareholders.
I've been saying it.
Politics should be for the shareholders.
It says what we're all thinking.
So EA has not been well liked for a long time, but the expansion, obviously, of Saudi government into very expensive purchasing of the video games industry is not a likely indicator that EA will turn around on its money-grabbing ways anytime soon. Most relevant to me, as obviously previously discussed, many Sims fans in particular really are worried about that the deal will result in even further degradation of the Sims franchise in the form of specifically censorship of that which made The Sims the most special, its comparatively fearless diversity and inclusion. A lot of Sims fans have been complaining, obviously, about the potential for them to sort of backtrack on all this stuff. It took them like 10 years to implement a lot of the feedback when it came to sort of gender expression and skin color diversity and stuff. Would take a very short amount of time for them to roll those changes back, I think, if faced with any level of Saudi pressure.
I think we can trust Jared Kushner. He seems like a pretty stand-up guy.
Seems like a good guy. Yeah.
He fixed the Middle East, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
That's the sort of extent of the information I have. I don't know if anyone else has anything else interesting, but that's the extent of the information I have. Just kind of just concerning, really. It's just such. Yeah, it feels like soon the Saudi government's just going to own everything.
Yeah.
And like EA was already such a cheap company, obviously famously so, with like loot box scandals and The Sims, my sort of most prominent example. Again, £1,000, guys, to own the entire Sims 4.
And also some of their other games that they're best known for are like
FIFA like a FIFA and
EA Sports
obviously world
FC or whatever.
releases, right, and stuff. So like literally famously money hungry company. So can't be good. Can't be good for the devs who work there or for the fans who buy the games. It can't be good for anyone involved. Really, quite dire. Really.
Yeah, I mean, there was a period of time, wasn't it, where there was some sort of public vote on who the best and worst companies were or something.
And it was EA.
And EA
the
lost
worst was EA.
Won the worst company over and over again, which I mean
People
was probably
hate EA.
a little unfair since, that includes like arms dealers and stuff.
EA is worse.
But
why did they include pools in the base game of fucking The Sims, man? They're definitely worse than arms dealers, okay? Where are my toddlers?
That does show, a public animosity towards them, which I mean, even things like Activision and stuff haven't managed quite the level of dislike that EA has managed. I will say that Andrew Wilson guy, I mean, he just looks like a psychopath. He pretty much looks like what's his name from
that.
I know it looks like the guy from American Psycho.
He does have a really
Patrick
creepy
Bateman.
smile.
He genuinely looks like he does awful things.
His smile's just a little bit too wide.
And just to be clear, legally, I've got no evidence of anything bad that Andrew Wilson said. I'm merely meanly commenting on his looks. But considering he's the CEO of EA and now the employee of the Saudi government, I I feel pretty good about doing that. Got to be said.
It was a truncated quote that I did quote. Obviously, there's some other stuff about how they'll continue to make quality products for people in the blah, 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 but we all know that's not true. So, because they haven't been doing that in the first place. So, continue what? Continue what?
I mean, I suppose in the, it's always very naive, but when Microsoft bought out a bunch of companies, there was a hope that and not entirely unfounded. This did happen in a few instances where now they'll finally be secure and able to make all the incredible pieces of art that they wanted to make.
I just think of the Grim Reaper visiting the doors meme.
Yeah.
Immediately.
But I mean,
these people, they're not buying EA out of the love of the game.
No.
Of course not. But I think, again, Xbox has done plenty of bad things. I mean, BDS, of course, on them. And even, they shut down a bunch of studios. They've done bad, even just general capitalist things with the companies. But part of the reason they bought these companies was a kind of a PR move to hey, look, we've got we bought Double Fine. We kept them afloat, and now we're going to help them make their games and fulfill their vision. I'm not saying they didn't have incredibly mercenary reasons for it, but the upshot was maybe so far seemingly relatively positive in that case. Meanwhile, but it's hard to imagine any aspect of that being the case here. This is just a purely ultra. No, it's basically just bad news. Whereas there were maybe some silver linings to what the acquisitions that Microsoft has done, even if in general, I mean, there have been just outright bad things that have happened, but also in general, the consolidation within these big companies is a bad thing, right?
And the Saudi Arabia aspect of it aside, it's just the private equity firms acquiring EAs and doing it in a leveraged buyout is just concerning in itself.
Yeah. I mean,
for what that says, as Sophie's already talked about.
That tends to be what happens when they're going to get stripped for parts and just
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many people are going to get fired, man.
Yeah.
So many people are going to get fired.
Probably. I mean, I think probably BioShock will. I mean, I would get my suspicion is that BioWare. Sorry, yeah, you're right. BioWare is going to get shut down because they're not.
That's the rumor out there.
They're not super money makers. They could. The last Dragon Age didn't do great, but if they had the real kind of
Yet another game I have a very strong feelings about.
They're working on the next Mass Effect. If they had the proper investment and leadership and stuff, they could really turn shit around, and they could have games that sell huge numbers. They could do that. Baldur's Gate sold a huge amount. This stuff isn't impossible. I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 is literally the sequel to old BioWare games. That could be turned around with responsible management and well considered investment. I find it very hard to imagine that is going to happen now. And so, other than I'm sure FIFA or whatever it's called now and Madden, sure they'll keep making those, although I'm sure they'll try and also cut them to the bone.
Well?
Yes. Yeah. Pretty much all the sports
that one's famously bad as well.
Yeah.
It's famously money hungry, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think FIFA and Madden are basically as bad as each other. They're pretty much the same back end to it.
Yeah.
But
although they're still some of the best-selling games.
Yeah. They do incredibly well.
I was looking at a list of best-selling games of each year. I think 2023 I was looking at, and I think 2 FIFA games. Well, EA Sports FC
Never
and
touched a single
whatever.
one.
No, I'm not.
Don't even know
I
what
had
happens
FIFA 2005 back in the day. It was quite fun.
I played a bit of International Superstar Soccer on the Deluxe on the Super Nintendo. That was about it. That turned into Pro Evo Soccer eventually.
Played Wii Tennis once.
Oh, yeah. I was a big fan of Mario Tennis. There were a lot of Mario Tennis games. They're good. If you put Mario in one of these games, I'm more interested.
Alex is there, buddy.
That's a cash grab, yeah. Now that's a cash grab I could get behind.
I think
Wahoo.
I think that's unfortunately in many ways it's for EA. So we're going to move on to the next segment, which is mine, and I'm just going to give a quick roundup of everything that kind of happened in general around Tokyo Game Show. They've had a big they've been doing this for decades now, the Tokyo Game Show, and there's always a bunch of news that comes out around it. It's not as big as what E3 or what used to be E3 and the now cratered remains of what used to be E3, but there's still some tidbits here. Probably the biggest thing was Sony had one of their State of Play announcements, and they had some interesting stuff in there. Saros is what they, or Saros? I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it. Is what they opened with. This is the game from Housemarque, who made Returnal. And this is very much a kind of a spiritual sequel to it. It seems like a new story and setting and everything, but it's still the same kind of a roguelike game. Although the vibe I get is that it's going to be easier, which I'm glad about, because Returnal was very difficult. But the kind of tagline on this is come back stronger, which seems to be itself a roguelike mechanic, that you will literally be stronger every time you die, which is something that was a lot harder to achieve in Returnal. So I'll probably enjoy this one, because I could not get very far in Returnal, to my shame. The Battlefield 6 campaign. Speaking of EA, this is an EA game. Who knows if there'll be a Battlefield 7, or maybe they'll just put out microtransactions for Battlefield 6 for the rest of the time. But there's actually going to be a campaign on this one, which I'm going to talk about, because there's politics in it. It's a military shooter. They can't not have politics. All we get from this trailer is that there is a voiceover that says, "The world as it's commonly known has crumbled. Alliances that held since the end of World War II, gone." So is this
Surely this was
a full refutation of the post-war order? Maybe. Who knows? What that means, my suspicion is that, I think a lot of these military shooters are very touchy about the whole it being all about shooting brown people thing. And so they really like to change shit up. So this kind of seems like it's going to be like, I don't know, America versus like France or something. Maybe. Just like, countries who have traditionally been allied are now going to war and stuff. But I mean, other than that, it looks very much like military shooters, your Calls of Duty. Seems like there's a big focus on kind of destructible environments, but who knows? Might play that to see what the political content of that is. We'll see. Neo 3 is coming out. Any Neo fans? That's a sort of one of the first kind of games to really ape the Souls-like structure. Genre. I don't know if you call it that. But there's a third one. It's coming out on February 6th. Zero Parades from Zaum. We're not going to talk about that, because that's going to be basically the final section from Ed. Crimson Desert got shown off. I'm kind of slightly obsessed with this game, because every single one of these, like every single year, E3, the Game Awards, I feel like I've been seeing this game for as long as I can remember. I don't understand it. Like, literally.
As long as you can remember.
Genuinely, I was just like, wait.
Since 1972.
Like, practically. I mean, at minimum for like most of this century, I feel like I've been seeing this. What actually has happened is that, one, this game has been in development for a very long time. They were showing it off in 2019. But before that, this is actually the sequel to a game called Black Desert Online, which looks very similar. But it's made by a Korean studio. I guess the Black Desert was an MMO, and this isn't an MMO. It's just like, like a...
I know Black Desert
Online.
Do you? Well, I haven't played much of it. It's got a slightly strange reputation of being quite pay to win.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Mike, the vibe I got was that like every year they would turn up at one of these shows and they'd have really good graphics. You're like, wow, that looks really impressive. And then at the end it would say Black Desert, and you're like, online, and you're like, okay, I don't care. And basically, as soon as they stopped showing off Black Desert Online, they just started showing off Crimson Desert. So I think these people must have given fucking Jeff Keighley just a huge amount of money over the years.
Our Lord and Savior gets another mention.
And the Patron Saint, yeah. But apparently this game is actually coming out on March the 19th. Despite the fact it's called Crimson Desert, I did not see a single desert in this trailer. It's all forests and shit. From what I could see, it looked very kind of The Witcher-esque, but very nice graphics.
Witchery.
Yeah. Chronoscript, The Endless End, a game which is kind of
needless end.
No, The Endless End. There is no end to it. The Endless End.
Are you joking?
That's what it's called. It's called The Endless End.
Is it Japanese?
Yes. It's
course,
the Tokyo Game Show.
That makes sense.
It's a kind of interesting looking 2D platformer where it's like all on manuscript pages that are like over this this 3D like physical table, and you walk around on it. However, the graphical style for it is incredible. I find it like genuinely difficult to look at. It's really, really busy, and like trying to determine what bits of it are like the wall and what bits are the floor, and it looks difficult to me. So I don't know what they're doing there.
Yeah, there's something about the edges on it that's like quite hard to tell where one thing ends and the next thing starts.
Yeah, it's genuinely.
I mean, I kind of like it, but I'm not sure if I would like to
It's
play
just
a
a
game.
little
Exactly.
bit too detailed, I think.
It's interesting. I'll give it that, but I don't know if I want to play it.
Yeah.
Next up, Microsoft Flight Simulator is coming for the PS5. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is coming out in 2025 on December 8th.
Let's freaking go.
And on PSVR as well,
on
right?
PSVR.
That's actually quite
It's
big.
quite big. It's the first time. Well, I think you can get VR version on the PC.
That's gonna make everyone so motion sick.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is like another in the line of Microsoft's like former first party now being available on.
And I wouldn't mention it except that this one literally has Microsoft in the name. It's literally there. So that's kind of crazy. Deus Ex Remastered. So Deus Ex, beloved game from the early 2000s. Very influential and important. Maybe they'd make a remaster. They are. And they announced it and they said it's coming from the studio Aspire. And I think everyone who knows about these things groaned because everyone wanted the studio Night Dive, who have also done a bunch of these old FPS remasters, and they're incredibly good at it. Everyone loves them. Aspire have a lot spottier reputation, and that's perhaps demonstrated by the fact that this kind of looks terrible. They've put some weird shiny, like everything looks shiny, and it looks kind of bad. I mean, the Deus Ex, the original game, as good as it is kind of objectively very ugly now. And I mean, it was pretty ugly when it came out, I would say. But this somehow looks maybe even worse. Let's hope that can be sorted out somehow. Let It Die Inferno, a weird sequel to a previous roguelike game from Grasshopper. No one really expected that, but it's coming out by the end of the year. Dynasty Warriors 3, a remake of the PS2 game, which was all in fog and stuff, and now you can actually see the thousands of warriors. And they finished up with the Wolverine game, much discussed. They announced it a while ago. Anticipated, yes. Made by Insomniac, who made the Spider-Man games. Looks very similar to that. Looks like you're going to be exploring a big city as Wolverine, but it's extremely violent. He's literally slashing his claws through people's faces and stuff. So that was the Sony show. Other stuff that happened, some Xbox stuff. They had an Xbox show, but a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about did not come out in that because it's kind of bad news for them. The thing they showed off was that the only real piece of news that was of interest from their show was that Forza Horizon 6 is going to be set in Japan, as rumored, and it's going to be out next year sometime. The other stuff
I feel like it was weird that they didn't have an advert at least.
Yeah, they didn't show. It's literally just like a
by the way, this game
it's coming. It's going to be in Japan in the end. I guess they felt they had to do that because it was a Tokyo game show, I suppose. But they have nothing to show yet, I suppose.
But even like a cinematic or something, just like generic cars going fast in Tokyo. Like, I don't know, it seems weird to me.
It is weird. The other things that happened is that, one, they announced the prices for the ROG Xbox Ally, which is their handheld they're bringing out, which is really basically just a rebranded version of the ROG Ally. And the prices are high. The normal version is £499. The X version is £799.
Oh my God.
A full $1,000 in America. And to be clear, the Xbox Series X console that you plug into your TV that exists now, that is $499. So the handheld version that can most play the games portably that machine can, is still unclear exactly how well it plays or how many of them it can play, is like £300 more.
God.
Speaking of high prices, Game Pass just got a big old price increase from monthly. So there are a bunch of tiers, but the tier that people actually care about, the one that gets you to the games day one, which is the whole point of really doing it. Yeah, in America, it's gone from $19.99 a month to $29.99 a month. So that's a 50% increase.
That is a lot.
In the UK, it's gone up from $14.99 a month to $22.99 a month. That's 53.33% increase. So it's slightly more of a raise here. And this is all despite record subscription revenue last year. Now, of course, we would like to remind our listeners that we do not recommend you do Game Pass anyway, because it's the target of the BDS. But as a general thing, this is not a good sign for Xbox, and people have been very negative about this online. Basically saying they're kind of signing their death sentence, their suicide note. Like pretty much Game Pass being a good deal was kind of the one thing that Xbox kind of had going for them, and now they don't even really have that.
It's bumped it up from sort of the top end of a streaming service to suddenly being like, oh, this is like an actual amount of money that you need to think about more.
Like almost half that. It's like some gym memberships cost that much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole point of it is like, it's meant to be, the point is you're saving money. If you buy a lot of games every year, you're saving money. But like, this means you now have to buy at least £23 a month in games every single month for it to be worth it. And that's quite a small number of people, I think.
Do you know a good way of saving money? Because the people that did the ROG Ally X found a good way of saving money in that presentation, because at the bottom right of the screen, some clips of it, it said activate Windows. so they were playing an unactivated version of Windows during that presentation.
Maybe they're doing BDS.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, maybe they are. There actually was some progress on BDS for this, isn't there?
Yeah, I should say, yes. It came out that apparently Microsoft have blocked Israel's access to the most contentious part of why they were being cancelled on BDS, which was, I don't have it to hand, but it was basically a surveillance system for how they can do surveillance on like mobile phones in Gaza and so on, which was used for targeting, basically. I believe that they are still on the BDS list because they do offer a bunch of other services to Israel, but like that is like a big victory for BDS, basically. And well, I guess not just BDS, but also the people internally who've been campaigning. I don't know. What was the name of the group? Was it No Microsoft in Apartheid or something like that? I forget. I do apologize. Yeah. So that'd be a big victory for them, certainly. And congratulations to them. But they are still under BDS, we should say.
The line from BDS is keep up the pressure.
Yeah, basically. And then the final thing that kind of came out of Tokyo Game Show is from the Rio Gagaguta studio, Like a Dragon games, and also previously known as the Yakuza games. They are making Yakuza Kiwami 3, which is Kiwami being basically the fancy remakes. It's a bit weird because the previous two games were originally PlayStation 2 games, so were changed very much by having this remake. Whereas this one was a PlayStation 3 game. It was by the time they were already in like full 3D, so it's maybe less of an upgrade. And also it's kind of probably the worst Yakuza game, not a very good one. So maybe less of a draw. But there is also going to be a Dark Ties spin-off that they made a big deal about, and like with the character he was, and I played all of Yakuza 3, and I was like, I could not remember this guy. He was actually the bad guy he fought at the end of the game, but he didn't have much impact on me, but apparently some sort of fan favorite. And there's going to be a whole like mini spin-off game where you play as him. And that's going to be in the 12th of February in 2025. So that's a little roundup on Tokyo Game Show this year. That's probably it for like big game shows until we have the Game Awards at the end of the year, when we get to commune with the patron saint of the podcast, Jeff Keighley, and so we can all look forward to that. But I did mention it. There is a bit of Zaum news in that whole thing, and there's even more Zaum news than that. And I'm gonna say it. Unambiguously good Zaum news, which we don't get very often. So let's hear it from Ed with this Zaumageddon update.
Thank you. Let me slip in before Zaumageddon, actually, that there was also the 6-1 indie showcase in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, I missed that. Oh, you're beating me.
I'm so sorry. And the I forget what they're called, but the dev that made Umageddon Generation, which we've been in contact with before.
Umageddon Generation. Actually,
yes, exactly. They for full disclosure, they sent us a free copy of that game to review as part of another project that we do. They announced their next game, or showed stuff from their next game, Penguin Colony. So keeping an eye out for that one. It seems sort of interesting.
I've been keeping up with that game. I was not aware of this thing. I will go back and watch it after we do this podcast.
Check it out.
But yes, let's hear the Zaumageddon update.
Let's do Zaumageddon, guys. Lock and load, baby. So, of course, I've made it my life's mission to keep you our faithful and beloved listeners updated with the deluge of Disco Elysium sequels. So we couldn't let this pass by without a little section from me.
We love it.
So, as you may recall, about a month ago, we got the announcement trailer for Zaum's follow-up to Disco Elysium, which is going to be called Zero Parades for Fake Radicals. It was a pre-rendered cinematic, so we didn't really learn that much about it. We got a kind of sense of the tone, and there were a couple of shots here and there from the game in a pre-alpha build, which made it look basically like it was going to be quite a lot like Disco Elysium. The trailer had a sort of vaguely unsettling tone, mildly surreal elements like a clock melting away, and it had a voiceover talking about spies and sort of shady shit like that. And it was slightly retro-futuristic as well, I would say, like kind of 80s, 90s, but in the future. Like that was the kind of, that's basically what we got from that first one. Well, last week, we got a look at the PlayStation reveal trailer for this as well. It was, both of these trailers are only a minute long each, so there's still not a huge amount to go on here. But we did get a little bit more of the pre-alpha gameplay. More of this was gameplay than was
It was pretty much
pre-rendered
all
cinematic.
game,
Pretty much. The first 10 to 15 seconds was mainly stuff that we'd already seen in the first trailer, I noticed, but cut slightly differently. But then the rest of it was, more newer stuff. And this confirms even further that this is going to be quite a similar vibe to Disco Elysium. The visual aesthetic is virtually identical from what I can see, and that it looks like there are going to be sections where a panel appears on the right-hand side of the screen, and you're sort of experiencing through that conversations or internal monologues that are written out, and you've got to do a lot of reading and then choose what you're going to do. And then your chances of success will be based on your skills and then dice rolls and your choices. So, for example, we saw in the trailer there's going to be a skill called shadow play. So I guess that fits in sort of conceptually with the spy idea. Again, there was more sort of depressing voiceover as they did in the first trailer. So we've got a real sense of the tone and that it's probably going to be quite a bit like Disco Elysium. Alex has made me aware, I'm going to shout out Alex on this one, of the of Disco Elysium expert YouTuber, professor of Disco Elysium, Jamrock Hobo's response to this. He's pointed out that the devs have used the phrase "the end of history" quite a lot in their marketing, and that Jamrock Hobo contends they appear to have misunderstood what that phrase means. Look, I can't say whether Zaum have misunderstood the phrase or if they're intentionally using it in a different way, but let me just talk you through this real quick. You might remember the end of history if you're a long-term listener or politically engaged, because we actually mentioned this in our last podcast, I believe, or in the last couple of podcasts, we referenced the end of history. It was in our Majora's Mask one, actually, so that was 2 podcasts ago. But for those uninitiated, that phrase is referencing an idea put forth by Francis Fukuyama, an American political scientist, primarily in his 1992 book, The End of History and the Last Man, in which Fukuyama argues that the collapse of the Soviet Union meant that Western liberal democracies had sort of basically won. I'm going to quote the book, and this is also on Wikipedia, so this is where I got the quote from. It's not just that the passing of a particular period of post-war history, but the end of history as such. That is the end point of mankind's ideological evolution and the universalization of Western liberal democracy as the final form of human government. So as we spoke about a couple of episodes ago, you get this moment at the end of the Soviet Union where there's this triumph of the Western ruling class, basically, and they're all pretty happy that they can now integrate the former Soviet bloc into the same kind of economic domination that they subject Central and South America to and much of the rest of the world. And there was this kind of triumphalism around it. And the end of history became kind of associated with
it's kind of also more the vibe of kind of the 90s of just
the early 90s, especially. Later on, as we talked about in that last one, there's a hollowness to it.
Yeah, but I mean,
to start to react to in media.
I think the book, that is true, but the concept of the end of history, it became just the idea that there was no alternative from neoliberal capitalism.
Exactly. Yes.
At the end of in the 90s, when things were going relatively well at least in the West, kind of oh, maybe that's good. Some people thought, oh man, this is the end of the night. We're just gonna everything's just gonna keep getting better forever. That was basically the concept.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and indeed, and this, of course, we can critique that from a left perspective in very many ways, and in lots of ways it seemed quite unrealistic at the time. I mean, to this day, the Communist Party of China remains the ruling party of the second largest economy in the world. So the idea that there's no alternative was questionable then and is questionable now. But that's not really the issue at hand. The issue at hand is we have Fukuyama celebrating the total victory of one way of structuring society over all others, And on the other hand, we have Zaum's game, in which, according to their marketing material, there are 3 rival superpowers competing, which seems to include, I can't quite work out the 3 powers, but it seems like there are communists, techno-fascists, there's a shadowy international development bank. So Zaum seemed to be describing a situation which is more or less exactly the opposite of the end of history situation. So I don't know if they've misunderstood or if they're deliberately reappropriating it in some way. I mean, you might say, because Fukuyama was basically wrong about the early 1990s being the end of history, maybe the situation in Endless Parade actually is like what the situation was really like in the 1990s, i.e. history was very much not over and there was a lot of propaganda and subterfuge and manipulation around that fact. Like maybe that will be what it is. Like it's a game about spies and subterfuge. Maybe that's part of it, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. I mean,
either way, they're not using it certainly in the traditional way that phrase is used.
I mean, the concern is, right, that like one of the reasons that certainly we love Disco Elysium, the reason we talk about it, we mentioned it so many times on this podcast, is the political content of it, right? And that it's a game basically made by Marxists about the experience of being a Marxist in this world, and in a world where it's like a communism has fallen. How do you deal with that? You know, live in hope in a world like that. That's what that game's all about. So the political core of it is incredibly important, at least to us. And then the suggestion that the political core seems like they're like, okay, we have to have some politics in this game because we're making at least some sort of level of spiritual sequel of Disco Elysium. And people are disappointed there's not politics in it. It looks like maybe the politics aren't as well observed, and that would be a worry. Hopefully we're proved wrong.
That certainly looks like a risk, but you know, we're at an early stage. We don't know yet. Who can say? But again, gentle listener, that wasn't the only bit of Zaumageddon-based news. Zaum aren't the only people out with an update. Summer Eternal, the worker collective co-founded with Argo Chulik and Dora Klindic, former Zaum writers, have announced a book called Anthology Volume 1, and the book will announce their first RPG, which is codenamed Project Red Rooster. So I'm not too sure.
Is it a novel?
No. I read quite a bit about what the book's going to be. I still can't quite get it, but it's, to quote them, part cultural journal, part development diary, part exclusive game reveal. The Anthology Volume 1 is a chronicle of the first year of Summer Eternal, as well as a map into the collective's future, end quote. So and what I can see on the pre-order page, because you can pre-order this now, the first half is non-fiction essays from the developers. There's also going to be more than 50 pages of concept art, but there's behind the scenes development stuff, and there'll also be essays on game design, world building, and narrative. But a big part of it is it will announce the next game. So the idea from them is video games are an important piece of art. They deserve more respect than like a trite announcement on social media is sort of what they're implying. And they're sort of harkening back to the days when games would be announced with like a full spread in like a magazine that people would buy once a month or something. And this is like them harkening back to that sort of like analog era where games were treated with more respect. That's sort of what they're saying. And the idea is that you'll pre-order this book, and then the book will be shipped with the intention that everyone gets it at basically the same time, like within a day or two of each other is what they said, 24 to 48 hours gap, but as close as possible to like the same time. Yeah, and in summer 2026, so a little while away, which would mean that everyone would experience the announcement of the game like collectively, like at the same time, which is an interesting idea. I mean, I don't know. I guess I kind of enjoy the idea of it. The price is quite high, would be my thought, though. The base edition, which includes the book, is €69, and they're also releasing a limited run with vinyls, which contain a couple of the music tracks from the upcoming game, a 3,000 limited run of that. And to get that edition, that costs €99. And it looks very cool. Like the book looks cool. It looks like a matchbox. Like you slide the book out of a bookcase, and it looks like you could, strike the side with a match. And some of the stuff they've shown does seem pretty interesting. But I mean, that's quite a lot of money for not the game, for a book about the game. I mean,
about a game that you literally don't know anything about right now.
It might be terrible. I mean, it might be the best thing you've ever played, but it also could be like awful.
How much is it again?
So, I mean, my It's 69 euros for the base edition and
Of the
99
book.
for the vinyl as well. Yeah, of the
Yeah,
book.
that's.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm a bookseller.
yeah.
Nobody's gonna buy that in a bookshop. So
Yeah, I mean, well, it's
think
like a
the only-
boutique, a boutique.
Yeah, obviously it's like a collector's item as
yeah,
well.
for basically that they
It's like a coffee table book, I'm sure. So it'll be because it'll have like
they
art
have
and
kind
stuff,
of
so.
established themselves as like the fan favorite of the Disco Elysium successors, right? They're the one who are the least controversial among the fans, at least, and the one like the closest one I think most people think to, like, oh, at least something that people have seen and have been a bit open about. Maybe Rostov's thing when he finally comes out with something would be maybe more authentic, but this is like the most authentically Disco Elysium thing so far in the eyes of many. So I think this is basically just a money-raising thing to try and fund the
Exactly
development.
what I was going to say.
And
I think you've got to view this as basically
Yeah,
Kickstarter.
pretty
much,
But
yeah.
like, yeah. So I'm not really a pre-orderer in general.
No.
I don't really back things on Kickstarter and stuff like that. My take would be it's a kind of an interesting idea, and the stuff does look pretty cool. So if you're into that kind of thing, but I would only spend that money personally if you'd be happy with the purchase, even if the game ended up being bad or you weren't like
Yeah.
that into it. Basically, if you can afford to lose that money and not care about it, if you're like wealthy enough that you can spend 69 to 99 euros and just not care if it's wasted, then this would be kind of a cool thing to spend it on, because it's kind of a gamble. Like it
Which
might end
sounds
up
like
being a
you
really
know the
cool
sort of thing
collector's
a collector
item for a great game.
would spend money on. Like yeah,
Mm.
it's just
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
just like
Diminishing
it's a collector
returns.
for a thing that doesn't exist yet. You know, there are no fans of Red Rooster.
I guess I could see an angle that someone who's just like, if they're a collector of Disco Elysium paraphernalia
mean,
as
that's
well,
basically
would
it,
also
right?
collect
Yeah.
this as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, so and that's leads us on to the final bit of Zalmageddon
My
news,
God.
and this is hot off the
Yeah,
press.
it's literally today,
Tough.
just today.
Literally today, the workers at Zalm have just announced that they have won union recognition, making them the first devs in the UK games industry to win that recognition.
woo.
Which is,
Great.
I mean, incredible in the context of the massive. Yeah, great work for the workers at Zalm. In the context of the massive job losses that we've seen worldwide in the games industry, I mean, in the statement they put out, over 15,000 worldwide were lost in 2024. This is a very important development, and hopefully the first of many that we'll see across the games industry. The IWGB Game Workers Union, who I think it's fair to say are friends of the pod,
definitely.
friends of the pod. They've been involved in months of negotiations around this, and this is a huge breakthrough. And just congratulations to all the workers at Zalm who
Congrats,
successfully
yeah.
won that recognition.
We
the unions.
just a bit of I know declaration. We personally know some of the people who work at IWGB who have been working on this. I mean, maybe not the direct people, but like some people. I know they have been working really hard on this. So this is a big deal for them to finally get it done for the game work.
Yeah, so just great to see it finally come together. The unions pledged to fight for an industry with greater job security, stronger regulation of AI, and the end of crunch culture. 3 demands that we've talked about so many times in different situations on this podcast that all sort of strike right at the heart of game development today. So it's sorely needed in the industry, and you can see that in almost everything that happens in the industry. Let me read out a couple of the quotes we got from people here. We've got a quote from Chris Butler, the lead programmer at Zalm and IWGB member. It said, "After months of hard work and negotiations, we're so proud of this historic win. It has been a labour of love for everyone involved, and I'm honoured to be a part of it. We now have a process to allow everyone a voice, which can only help sustain both the art we create and the people who bring it to life. We hope this can be a call for others in the games industry to form unions and start a collective conversation across the UK." And yeah, it echoes what we were saying. Like, hopefully this can be the start of a wider movement. It would be sort of fitting for it to be the developers that bought us Disco Elysium and then had all the drama that Zalm have had internally. If they were the ones that sort of could kick off this movement, it'd be great to see it. I mean, let me quote from Sprin McParlin-Jones as well, the chair of the IWGB Game Workers branch. They said, "Anyone working in the sector can see that the game has been rigged against us for far too long. By coming together as a union, Zalm developers are proving we can reshape our workplaces for the better. We want an industry where workers can create exciting, meaningful games without sacrificing their mental health, their social lives, or their financial stability. I hope this achievement inspires others across the games industry to join us in building a fairer, more sustainable sector. So again, you can see the same sort of thing here. The idea that this could hopefully be the beginning of something even bigger. So yeah, very exciting development for Zaum. Red Barrels, as a group, I'm sure we will offer our support and congratulations,
Absolutely.
and excited to see what happens next with this. This is a historic moment.
And I will
Really
say that,
exciting.
but we might, maybe, it's possible. You could have some people on the podcast to talk about this at some point in the future. I think I made
Thanks,
that vague. Do you think I made
Ross.
that vague enough? I think I made it vague enough.
A little tease.
Little
What could you be referring to? Who knows?
Yeah.
Please.
And that's the end of Zalmageddon. I guess this may be the third time we've done Zalmageddon properly. So Zalmageddon Part 3. Excited to see what Zalmageddon Part 4 brings.
A surprisingly upbeat Zalmageddon, right? I mean, okay, we might have issues with that end of history thing, but they showed off their game and it looked generally okay, to good even. Summer Eternal showed off their new thing and it's weird and kind of interesting, but, that's cool. And then Unionization, cherry on top, amazing. Very rare we have a Zalmageddon section that is that positive.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, on that moment of joy and comfort to us all, I think we're going to have to wrap up the podcast. I think we're going to be done for another fortnight. Yeah, it's fortnight. That's when we do this. I will say that in between now and the next podcast, well, there will be the World Transformed Festival, and we have connections with them, and we recommend you attend if you can. The tickets might be selling out, so we might want to check it out if you still have time. If you got this on the Monday when it comes out, it starts on Thursday, so you can make it happen in Manchester.
Grab your Hideo Kojima credit cards and buy
I
a
forgot. I
ticket
should
to
have talked
TWT.
about the Hideo Kojima credit card. Actually, I may have forgot to mention. Yeah, in the Tokyo Game Show, he showed up OD, which yes, as predicted, looks just like it's PT. So PT might actually be coming out, and
PT.
And he's bringing out his own credit card. Pardon?
I have an obsession with that trailer. I love it.
Yeah. And he's bringing out a credit card for some reason.
Oh. Yay.
That's Kojima, baby. And on that bombshell, we will be finishing. And I've got to go through all the stuff. You threw me entirely with your Kojima craziness.
Fool.
As always, we would desperately ask that you share us on social media and also review us on iTunes and Spotify. And if you don't do that, we are personally hurt that you didn't. But you can find us on Twitter at Red Barrels Pod and on Blue Sky at redbarrelspodcast.bsky.social. Personally, you can find me at Alex Dean, ALEXDUIN on Twitter and at alexdean.bsky.social on Blue Sky. Ed, how can people find you?
Anyway, you can find me at Not a Lemon on Blue Sky, and you can find me at Still Not a Lemon on X, and I'll see you there. Thank you very much.
And Sophie, what about you? What about you?
Can find me.
Aren't you available on the internet?
Me first. Oh, me? Oh, wait, you said, are you? Oh, never mind. Sorry.
What?
I got confused.
What
I thought you were
just
saying,
What
I thought you
happened
said, like, what about you? Aren't you available on the, I thought you were saying that to Alex. And I was like, what about me?
I see.
But,
No,
but
no,
Alex
everyone
just
knows
asked
that.
me. You can find me on Twitch. I stream 4 days a week at twitch.tv/Sofreely, SOFREELY.
Didn't you recently change your schedule, I believe, Sophie?
Yeah, it's still 4 times a week. That's
Okay.
why I don't say the days specifically.
I'm just saying you could use this to make that clear to people, but whatever.
I did change my schedule. I used to stream on some days of the week, and now I stream on some different days of the week, namely Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sundays. Some of the time,
You
Sundays.
can catch her there some of the time.
Be there or be square.
But we really are over now, despite the various sabotages from my co-host. But we are done, so I will say goodbye.
Bye.